Hey now, we're back.
Yes, and to none other than a bed.
Yeah, I know this looks like scenes from a marriage, the Ingmar Bergman film, but no, this is just how our podcast looks like if you're watching this, which you should try to watch this, and you can watch this by becoming a VIP Patreon member, by the way. Click the link below and you'll see how to do that. Yeah, so we're back. I'm your host, Kevin. This is my wife,
Aileen?
and thanks for joining us today on Briterion Bollection Films.
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't done one together in a while.
No, we could just never find the right time. It was either I was really busy or whatever other kind of circumstance would suddenly pop up, but we're finally making the time for
Yeah.
this.
Well, you got sick too, right?
Yes, that definitely did not help, which, for those of you who don't know, I get sick quite often.
Yeah, I hate
And
it.
yeah, and it usually I blame work.
Mm-hmm.
It's either kids or other people who don't mind spreading their germs onto others.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because I also work in the educational field. I'll leave it at that. And my first year working in that, I got sick as fuck. It was like just months of sick. It was just like months of having a cold. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
I knew I wasn't like deathly ill or anything like that, but it was just like once like January hit, like I was just sick for like 4 months straight.
I do remember that. Yes, I remember that first year was really hard for him. I remember that we even went to Coachella that year, and I don't know how we managed to stay the whole weekend with him being really sick. Like, he just had the worst cold.
Yeah, it's fucking horrible. But yeah. So you were sick, and then our cats got sick.
Yes.
Tom, he got really sick, and it was kind of scary. But he ended up being okay, and he's doing fine. He's great now.
Mm-hmm.
But our other cat, Mao, he all of a sudden got kind of sick the other day. I think he's really just constipated. That might be what he has.
Yeah, he has a follow up tomorrow, so hopefully they're able to see what's really going on with him because he's doing slightly better, but he's still not.
Yeah.
He still hasn't really bounced back.
Yeah. He's either constipated or he hurt his leg somehow. Maybe jumping around on the cat tree. But because something, I was like trying to, pet his back area, and he kept like growling at me, which he never does. And he was just acting weird. He was hiding when usually when I come home, he's like a dog. He's like all excited to see me, and he wants to watch Yankee games with me. That's really what we do together when I come home from work. But the past couple of days, I was like, "Where is he?" And then, the first day, he was like hiding, which I thought was really weird. So we're dealing with that right now, but I think he'll be okay. I think when the vets see him, they give him the proper meds. I mean, maybe it could be that he hurt his leg too. I'm not really sure. But anyway, so we've had to deal with a lot of issues like that, a lot of illness. And then when we were together, it was like we were too tired to do it.
Well, and a lot of times because I do have two jobs, so a lot of times I'm juggling both jobs and I'm just running back and forth, or if it's not job related, I'm also running errands and I'm just,
yeah,
going around in circles.
Yeah, yeah, just been really busy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We actually did a false start of this episode. We did a piss take about a month ago.
Yeah, but it wasn't flowing very well.
Yeah, just the vibe wasn't right. I think I was too sleepy. And I was like, no, we have to redo it because I feel like this episode can be really, really good. So I wanted to make it as perfect as possible.
Yes.
And the reason I'm excited for this film is I think it's a great film.
Despite what a lot of people think about it, especially about the second half of this film, really.
Yeah, I love the whole movie.
Yeah.
And that film that we're talking about today is
Babylon.
Yep, Babylon.
Directed by Damian Chazelle.
Yep, I love that guy.
Well, for me, he's. I have mixed reviews about him, but I do really like this movie.
Right, yeah. Yeah, really, I'm a big Chazelle fan. I pretty much like all his work. So I was really excited to see this movie. Like I heard he was coming out with a new movie, after La La Land. Well, I guess he did La La Land, and then he did First Man, and then after a few years, and then during the pandemic, I heard he was coming out with his Babylon, and it was about like the silent film era. So it just seemed really interesting, and I really wanted to see what he would do with that. So I saw it in theaters by myself.
Yes, let's just say that I ended up hanging out with a friend for the weekend, and actually, I'm no longer friends with that person. So
yeah.
I could have made a better decision and stayed with Kevin and gone watch Babylon with him.
Sorry, maybe we can see it in a re-release together.
Well, if hopefully
they re-released La La Land like a couple months ago, and I wanted to see it, but you didn't want to watch it again.
Well, because that's a whole different story, which you probably heard me on the previous episode say not so great things about it. But when the time comes where we actually do talk about La La Land, I'll bring up all the things that are wrong with that movie. I mean, don't get me wrong, when we actually did both watch La La Land in the theaters, and I came out crying at the end.
Yeah.
But when I look back, there are a lot of wrong things about that movie.
Yeah, I still love the movie. I think it's a great film. And similar to that, like when I was in the theater and the Babylon was finishing, and it hit the very end shot, I was like emotional, kind of. I wouldn't say I was crying per se, but like there was like a sadness to it.
I think it's even sadder than La La Land.
Yeah,
if you ask me.
Yeah. It was. I was like, I was kind of emotional yet uplifted too at the same time. And so so I saw it when the movie came out, and then I was just in shock that the movie wasn't doing well. I mean, come on, it had stars: it had Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a guarantee that it'll do really well. And honestly, I don't even think they're the ones who even stood out for me in the movie, honestly.
No, it's really Diego Calva's movie, right?
Yes, which, by the way, Diego Calva is a Mexican actor. In reality, he just kind of came out of nowhere, because even in Mexico before Babylon, he wasn't even that big of an actor.
Yeah, it's not like he was freaking Diego Luna or anything. He was like really obscure even in Mexico.
Well, yeah, the only reason why we even knew about him prior to watching Babylon is because he had a supporting role on this Netflix series called Desenfrenadas, which actually the English language title is Unstoppable, which I guess that was the closest thing that they could translate it to. Yes, and it's about, the premise on the series is about three women who are all in their mid-20s. They're either, like at the start of their careers, or one of them is like, pursuing medicine, because her pretty much that was her father's profession, and he's pushing her to, following his footsteps.
Yeah.
But all these three women, especially Rocio, which is the one who's the prospective surgeon, because she's actually going in for surgery. That would be her specialty. She realizes that, you know what, maybe I need to take another path. They all just go to Oaxaca on a whim. And on the way to Oaxaca, they find the fourth woman who actually needs help. And in reality, this other woman is she's being pimped out by her boyfriend, Joshua, who is played by Diego Calva. So yeah, you can imagine. I don't want to spoil it too much, even though unfortunately nowadays that despite the fact that it's a Netflix original, now it's really hard to find it because it did get removed from Netflix a few months ago.
Yeah, which I think is stupid. But
Yeah.
they'll probably put it on VEEX or something like that.
I
Right?
mean, I would hope so because I actually really liked it, and unfortunately, it got canceled right after that first season.
I really liked the show. I thought it was really good. But one of the actresses, Lucia Uribe, she's like the queen of canceled shows. Like she's like
because she had that canceled, and she was on another Netflix series called Todo va a estar bien, or it translates to Everything Will Be Okay, and that also got canceled after the first season.
Yeah. But I really like the show, and that's the thing. I remember, like, we saw that series. We saw it right before the pandemic hit.
Yes, it like right before.
Yeah.
Like 2 weeks before. I mean, it had already been going on around like other parts of the world.
Yeah.
But in our area, it didn't hit until mid-March.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that came out in late February.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we were staying at a hotel in Tijuana, and
R.I.P. Nook Hotel.
Yeah, so it's called Nook Hotel, and it was really cool. I thought it was the shit. Like I loved the design and everything.
And it was we stayed opening night.
Yeah,
because it was the inauguration of the hotel and the adjacent bar.
Yeah,
which was really cool.
Yeah,
and so our first night there, we watched this Empanadas, and we thought, oh, cool.
Yeah, because they had smart TVs like in the room, so I was like, oh, this is cool. I was like, even though I liked watching, the local, whatever cable that they had, and like, watching like VH1 Classic, on TV, but they didn't have that. They just had smart TVs, but they had Netflix. So we're like, oh, this Empanadas just came out. Let's watch this, and we watched it, and it was a lot better than I was expecting. I was like, oh, this is pretty good, actually, and that's what was interesting. And then I remember watching it, and this guy, Joshua character, you're like saying, oh, this guy's so fucking ghetto. Like
the way that he portrayed his character, I bought it. He really seemed like he was like really this, like he really seemed trashy, honestly.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So I remember I heard that during the pandemic. So like the pandemic hits, and then I heard that Damian Chazelle was casting his new movie that he's going to be doing. I saw it on like Variety or on Facebook or something like that. And then I saw that he casted this Mexican actor with the lead part, which I thought was random. I was like, why is he casting some Mexican actor for this? Like, that's weird. And he like kind of plucked him out of nowhere. And then I clicked like the story to see who it was, and then it showed this guy, and I was like, oh, this guy looks familiar. And I was like, oh, that's that guy from that Descent now. That's like the fucking ghetto guy that Aileen hates or whatever.
I mean, I just hated his character, not that I hated the actor.
Yeah, but that was so shocking. I was like, you were even saying like this guy will never act again because you were like you thought he was so ghetto in that. Like you didn't think he was acting, pretty much.
I think you're stretching it out a bit, but I just thought his character was too much, and honestly, I didn't really like how misogynistic he was. On top of the fact that he was doing illegal activity.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess he's a pretty good actor then, because he bought his whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So he's in this movie Babylon, and seeing interviews with Chazelle afterwards, like he needed a Mexican actor for this. I guess he just wrote it, based on, this his main character is going to be this kind of, Mexican character, and he didn't want anyone too known for the role. So, and then he had to be young-ish, and there really aren't that many, like, somewhat well-known actors or not well-known actors who are that young. You know what I mean? Like, but I saw an interview, and Chazelle said that he saw a headshot, like he saw Diego Calva's headshot in like a stack of all these headshots, and he just saw his, and he was like, oh, he seems good, let's screen test him. And then he brought him in for a screen test with Margot Robbie, and he killed it, basically. Like, I guess she was doing it with other actors, but she said he was the best one because he was the only one who would like push back on her. Like all the other guys, she was like dominating them, easily, and they were like kind of they would give in to her too easily, But she said he was really good because he was the only one who would like stand up to her, and she's like, "Yeah, that's exactly what we want." You know what I'm saying? We want someone who can believably, like stand up to my bullshit as this character Nellie Leroy.
Well,
right?
which
he does. Right?
Yes, we'll talk about that shortly.
Yeah. So, I was just shocked that it didn't do very well. I mean, maybe it's the silent movie aspect, and people don't like silent movies. And it's a period piece. Maybe people don't like that. I don't know.
I think that's part of it,
Mhm.
but I also looked into it, and Kevin knows that I love going on Reddit to look at, to read people's perspectives.
Much to my dismay.
Yes, well, which you don't even have a Reddit account, do you?
No.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you can never find me, I will not say what my username is, but that's all for you to find. It'll be like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
So, well, but trying to go and, like when I go to subreddits about movies or whatnot, and I try to read on what people didn't like about Babylon. I mean, some people will go and they'll be like, I really like this movie. But then in the comments, some people will be like, what I didn't like about this movie was that it was very grotesque. It just felt like there was a lot of disgustingness going on in it. Or some people did say that I didn't like the fact that I had to sit for more than 3 hours to watch this movie when it could have been significantly reduced. Or I didn't even have an issue with it being more than 3 hours long because I felt like it was more fast paced than you would think.
This movie flies by. This is the quickest 3 hours you'll ever spend.
Yeah,
I think watching a movie, like it just goes by so fast. Like it's just like cool set piece after cool set piece. Yeah. Or were you gonna say something else?
Yes, I was going to say something else actually. Thank you, Kevin, for actually letting me go back to what I was talking about. Which, by the way, Kevin tends to interrupt me quite a bit, so this is a rare moment where he lets me go back. So, or at least, consciously. Mm-hmm. So, another thing about that, a lot of people complain that Babylon is too grotesque of a movie, but this was the Roaring 20s, and we can see that Damian Chazelle was trying to depict this era as closely as possible. So I can definitely see it, even though it does get pretty gross at times, but I can see people really being like that during that.
Yeah, it was a very decadent era. It was. I guess it was around the same time as the Weimar Republic in Germany. It was like basically the same thing, just in different countries. But I know like Paul Schrader, I guess, didn't like the movie because I saw he tweeted something when it came out, and he was like, "Who the hell did the research for this Babylon?" or whatever. Like he thought it wasn't accurate. But I mean, I saw interviews with Chazelle, and he was saying, "No, I did a lot of research. I read a lot of books for the time period."
Which I actually believe.
Yeah, and he was saying, there was a lot of drugs coming in, and it was mingling with the Hollywood scene that was kind of burgeoning. So yeah, it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Before rock and roll,
existed.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, when I walked out of the theaters, like I got that feeling like when you walk out of a movie and it's like a good ass movie, you know what I mean? Like that's how I felt. I'm like, yeah, like that was a fucking good ass movie. Like I love that. And so to me, this movie is almost like if Pulp Fiction took place in the 20s. You know what I mean? Like as far as being like a LA, based movie with these interlocking stories, kind of, and especially the third act. Like that third act feels very Pulp Fiction to me.
Yeah.
So maybe we can get into describing the film.
Yeah.
I didn't really see a concise Wikipedia description, so we'll forgo that this time. Yeah.
Or if you just want to abbreviate it, however you want to do it.
So, I mean, what is Babylon about? It's about the silent era of film in Hollywood, so it starts off in the late 20s, I guess, 1928.
Yeah.
Or 26, I guess, is when it starts. And then we see just that whole, the end of that silent film era. And, when the jazz singer comes out and ushers in the era of sound film, and it's a real success. But, a lot of the actors who were big in the silent era couldn't keep up with that, and they just kind of fell by the wayside, and some of these actors, like some of the characters in the film, are based on real actors from that time period who went through depression after they couldn't sustain their careers, and from the transition from the silent era to the sound era, and some of them committed suicide, stuff like that.
Yeah, which I would assume also that the stock market crash didn't help.
Yeah, I'm sure that didn't help the situation. So we see that, and we kind of see it through the eyes of this Mexican character, Manny, and him basically wanting to be part of the film world, and that's his passion, and he's kind of an outsider though, being a random Mexican guy, but it's he loves the art form, and yeah, we see kind of his journey, trying to get into the film industry, and the ups and downs of it, and at the end of the day, him like tapping out of the industry. You know what I'm saying? But I think he still sees the beauty of film at the end of things.
Oh yeah, of course.
So the movie starts, and we see the old school silent film Paramount logo. I think that's pretty cool. With like a sepia tone, like just to give you that silent film.
Like that old school vibe,
yeah, exactly. And Chazelle, I've noticed that he likes to play with those studio logos. Like he also did that in La La Land with the Summit logo. Like also had this like old school type of look. And I remember what happened to Summit. The Summit Studios. They were doing a lot of shit at that time.
I don't know.
Did they close down or something?
That's a good thing to look at right now. You know what?
They were doing a lot of good movies at one point. It was like kind of like that Bob Yari entertainment. Like Bob Yari at one point in the mid 2000s, he was like, or the early 2000s, he was kind of running shit, and then all of a sudden he just stopped. I'm not sure what happened. I mean, same thing with Lionsgate in the 2000s. Lionsgate was on a hell of a run.
Well, I'm looking it up right now, and it looks like they are still around.
They're still around. Well, like, what's the last shit they produced? I feel like I haven't seen. Yeah. Like, I used to see that Summit logo before, like, almost every movie. Like, in the early 2010s and the late 2000s.
They're the ones in Pasadena, right?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
I mean...
So, yeah, they were doing a lot of shit. And then, so the film actually starts, and we open, and we see Bel Air in 1926. And we see, like, just a dusty road with palm trees. So they had to shoot this somewhere in the desert around LA, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, like, Lancaster area or something
Probably.
like that. And so we see this old buggy Model T car pull up with, like, a carriage and stuff. And this big guy comes out. He looks like some Duck Dynasty guy with a beard. He comes out. So I was never a big Duck Dynasty guy.
I never cared for it.
He comes out with a clipboard, and he sees Manny, and he's like, "Are you Manuel?" And he tells him that he has to pay for the vehicle and the livestock, and he says, "Put down one horse, write one horse and sign." And he tells him, "Well, it's not a horse; it's an elephant." And he's like, "What?" He's like, "It's an elephant." And he looks down the road, and he sees this other guy with an elephant, and he's freaked out. The big guy, he's freaking out, and he tells him, "This is a truck for fucking horses. What do I look like, goddamn Maharaja?" And man, he just tells him, "Shut up," and he sticks money in his face. And he's like, "Okay, you're invited to the party." And so we cut to, they're trying to get up this hill with the elephant, trying to pull him up in the car, and it's just, they're struggling. So Manny and this other old Mexican guy, they're kind of trying to push the elephant's ass up the hill, but they're really struggling. So the older guy gets out, and he's trying to calm down the elephant. So he like throws hay at him, like he throws hay at his ass to try to calm him down, I guess.
Literally.
Yeah. And Manny's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" He's like getting pissed off at him, and he's like, "Oh."
Which, by the way, he throws a lot of phrases in Spanish.
Yeah.
Which she actually did say that in Spanish.
Yeah. I think he improvised all that stuff because I'm sure that wasn't written there. Not in Spanish anyway, you know what I'm saying? I'm sure, but he did a good job of that. I'm sure Chazelle was like, improvise something in Spanish, make it realistic. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
Because what does he say? He's like, ¿Qué chingados estás haciendo?
Yeah.
He tells him that, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much what he said.
Yeah, like, what the fuck are you doing? So, yeah, and then this old Mexican guy keeps throwing the hay, and all of a sudden, we get a close-up of the elephant's asshole, and the elephant just shits all over us as the audience. Just all over the camera and all over the guy, all over the older Mexican guy. And I think Manny gets like some ricochet of the shit. Some ricochet, but not that badly. But the older guy gets it.
Did he just say ricochet?
Yeah. I guess because it looks like shit, right? But it's French.
Speaking of improvisation.
But it's French, right? So you say ricochet. But it looks like ricochet, like ricochet.
Okay, that was weird on a few levels.
So, and cut to like they get stopped by a cop, and he sees it's an elephant, and it's funny how the cop is like, he's not shocked by the elephant. He's just like, "You got a permit?" And Manny's like, "I didn't think we needed one." And he's like, "You gotta have a permit. Plan to have an elephant." Like the guy is so serious. The cop guy. They're like, it's funny how matter of factly he is about the elephant. And Manny's like, shit, well, I don't have a permit. And then the cop is like, okay, well, how's the guest looking tonight? Like, he knows it's for a party.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, well, it'll be at Don Wallach's house. And we cut to, like, he asked, like, oh, can I invite my cousin or whatever? And he's like, okay, or whatever. And he's like, okay, great. He lives in Reseda or something like that. with Ralph Macchio. No.
I mean, I just think it's true that Reseda would already exist.
Yeah, and I feel like there are some anachronisms in this film, like things that, like, I don't think Reseda was even developed at that time.
You know? I don't think so either. You know what? Maybe I should look that up.
Okay.
See, I feel like I'm the go-to person when it comes to looking things up in the middle of recording. Podcast.
You're the research queen. So they get there, where they get to Don Wallach's mansion with like a caravan of people. Like, this is almost like the people coming from Honduras.
Yes. Oh, I know. It was really weird. Actually, no. Wikipedia just proved me wrong. It was founded in 1912.
Really? What
yes.
the hell? Like, but has there always been like a suburban community or whatever?
I suppose it has been.
Like, that's pretty strange. So anyways.
Yeah, because it was devoted to agriculture for many years.
Okay, maybe it was just a farm community at that point.
Yeah.
Then it just turned into a ghetto community after a while.
So once again, this proves that Damian Chazelle did do his research.
There you go. So they get there with this caravan of people, and Don Wallach's henchman security is like, "Who the fuck are all these people?"
No preguntes.
Yeah.
Like don't ask.
That's what Manny says. And then also you hear the beat like...
Oh.
Like you hear the music, the score kick in.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I think he's a great composer. What's his name?
Justin Hurwitz, which, by the way, I heard he recently went on tour to perform a lot of the scores that he does.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think he's great. I love all the scores he's done. Like, he's really good. He really writes great melodies. And so, the music kicks in, and we see this chick kind of dancing in a room, and then we see her piss on this fat guy on the floor.
Yeah, she just gave him a golden shower.
Yeah.
Very nice view.
Golden slumbers in your eyes, yeah.
What?
That was a Beatles reference.
I don't know if that really suits here, by the way. I mean, as much as I understand you want to reference the Beatles, but I think it's probably not the right thing.
Okay. I'm sure Paul McCartney doesn't want to be associated with that.
Yeah, he would probably be ashamed if he heard you.
But that's part of the grotesque thing you're talking about, right? People were just too grotesque about that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you're a director of that stature, you need to hit the audience hard, like, quickly. That way they know if it's for them or not. You know what I'm saying? Because people, when they see the elephant shitting, they can be like, okay, I'm walking out. You know what I'm saying? And that's fine. You know what I'm saying? You can just be like that. That wasn't for me. That really set the tone. And okay, and then if you weren't grossed out by that, okay, are you gonna be grossed out by this chick pissing on this fat guy? You know what I mean? Like, okay, if you're grossed out by that, okay, this movie's not for you. You can keep walking out. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like he keeps kind of testing the audience early on. You know, to see if you're up for seeing this. You know. And then we see this big ass party going on at this mansion. It's really roaring 20s. You know what I'm saying? It's it's flappers, it's naked people, and it seems like a fun party actually. And we see this jazz player, Sydney, is his character, and we kind of see his story. I mean, we see his story in the film, and we see him, playing with his buddies in the band, and we see some guy snorting coke off some chick's tits. Yeah. And then we see Jean Smart's character, Eleanor St. John, and she's like a movie critic for the time. She's like the Ebert of the time, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And then Manny is like wrestling with a chicken, and he's trying to catch a chicken. Then he goes outside, he smokes a cigarette, and then like this romantic theme kicks in. This Manny and Nelly theme. Yeah, it's a nice little theme, and
which it's pretty much signature Justin Hurwitz.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of reminiscent of La La Land, that melody. Kind of like City of Stars.
It kind of does remind me of it.
Yeah, so it's like if you like La La Land, you'll like that. Musically, anyway. And then all of a sudden, a car crashes out of nowhere into a sculpture on the lawn, and it's Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie comes out, and she plays Nellie Leroy, right?
Yeah.
Which is actually not proper French, right? Because
it would be Leroy.
Well, not just that, but how she wrote it, it's like La Roy, which it wouldn't be La Roy.
No, it would be Le.
It would be Le Roy because it's masculine. Roy is king.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's Leroy, not Leroy. So
I guess it just became Americanized.
Yeah, got butchered at Ellis Island or whatever.
Yeah, that's most likely it.
So, she comes in and she's also trying to crash the party, and she's arguing with the security guy, and Manny sees this, and I think he's like, "Oh, she's hot. Let me try to let me try to help her out." So he comes into the scene and he's like, "Nellie Leroy, they're waiting for you." And then she's like, "See?" to the security guy. He's like, "All right, fine, go ahead." And he kind of saves her, and he goes with her. He walks with her, and she tells him. It's kind of funny because she tells him like, "Hey, like, I want to be an actress, like, and you either are a star or you ain't." That's what she says, which comes back later on. And she asks him, she tells him, like, "Oh, thanks for helping me. Like, you know where I can find some drugs?" that's what she asked him. And then the jazz players are having a musician conversation. They're having a real argument musically. And in the background, we see a little person jumping on a pogo stick, like with the shape of a penis, like covering the pogo stick.
Oh,
like it's like his costume, and then he like jumps up and he like shoots jizz everywhere.
Thank you for the description.
I thought that was brilliant. I mean, how come I feel like I haven't seen that. Did they only do that in the 20s or what? Like, I feel like I haven't seen that nowadays.
Yeah, I guess that was that was for the.
That was the heyday of pogo, penis, little person jizzing.
That's such a weird combination.
Yeah. No, but it's funny that that's in the background while they're having this musician conversation. It's kind of funny. It's jazz with jizz.
Okay.
Okay, and then we see that fat guy who, with the girl who was pissing, and she's on the floor, passed out. She might be dead. So they're like, "Oh shit." He's like, "What the hell do I do?" And then we cut to, and we see Brad Pitt outside in a car.
Well, actually, you just spoiled that because they at first don't show his face. They just see,
okay.
yeah, they just see
Okay,
a married couple. Yeah, so you outside you see a married couple arguing in their car, and the man insists that he's speaking to his wife in Italian, and she hates it. She's like, stop pretending to be Italian. You need to stop speaking the language, like
Yeah.
And he insists on speaking Italian. So she said, if you speak one more word in Italian, I'm going to divorce you.
Mm-hmm.
So then,
and he's quiet.
He's quiet for a bit,
and then she smiles at him.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he starts speaking Italian again.
And she's like, all right. He's like, yeah. Like, she's just done with him. She's completely
like,
done.
Fuck you. I'm leaving you. She smacks him and leaves the car. Leaves in the car.
Yeah.
She takes off and leaves him there standing. And so that is Brad Pitt.
Yes.
Who plays Jack Conrad.
Right? Yeah. And so his and the woman who plays his wife, the actress, is Olivia Wilde. Right?
Yeah, it's a nice little cameo from the director of Booksmart, right?
Yeah. Interesting, I guess.
Yeah, Olivia Wilde. We were talking about her earlier, weren't we?
Well, briefly, because we were talking crap about Jason Sudeikis.
Yeah, we were.
Yes, and
you guys already know the whole drama. Right?
Yeah, which I assume mostly everybody does by now. And if you don't, just Google it.
Yeah, exactly. So Jack goes into the party and he hobnobs. Everybody loves him. He's the man of the hour, So his career is riding high at this point. You can see that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see some fat guy with a penis drawing on his torso, and he's like kind of running around. It's like, okay, there's a lot of penis imagery in this.
And why?
Yeah. And then Jack is sitting at a table, and the waitress tries to get his attention by like rubbing her tits in his face, or like she kind of leans across him and like just like he's sitting there, and it's just like whoa. And he orders. He's like, you know how to make a corpse reviver, which has a dash of absinthe. He tells her. I guess they had a lot of absinthe back in the day.
That was big.
Yeah. It somehow died over time. I guess.
Well,
because people died. I guess that's why.
I heard it doesn't taste good.
I'm sure.
I heard
but
that.
It's less like a forbidden thing, I think that's why people like it.
Yeah, I guess so. But from what I heard in more recent times, is that absinthe tastes horrible.
Yeah.
And that it even goes for people who like to regularly drink.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would probably hate it.
I mean, I think I would especially hate it, which, by the way, nowadays, I hardly ever drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still drink a little. Like, I'll have at least a beer a week. One.
Yeah, no, I feel
every
like...
Thursday is Thirsty Thursday, celebrating the end of the work week, maybe the next day, and I have a beer. I had a nice Radler the other night. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I actually did take a sip. Yeah. It was pretty good.
It's pretty good, right?
Other than that...
Shout out to Aldi. We need to get more Radlers. Good Radlers.
Yes, bring back that Bitburger Radler. Yeah. That one was really good.
Yeah.
But I only saw it... I was like, there one day, gone the next day.
Yeah.
So...
That was very limited supply.
I don't know what happened. And even then, I would think Bevmo would have it, but I haven't even had a chance to even go to Bevmo. Like I said, I hardly ever drink. Why would I even go to Bevmo?
Well, you can get me some.
Okay.
Or Schoferhofer. Schoferhofer's hella good. I love Schoferhofer.
Okay, sure.
I'm a hoe for Schofer.
Weird. Okay. But yes.
So anyways, so Jack is at the table having his corpse reviver, which I think is a cool name for a trick. Mm-hmm. And Jack is told that his buddy is in the car threatening to kill himself because of a girl. And so Jack has to go, like, talk him off the roof. And that buddy is George, and he's played by the young man who was in when he was a little kid in Witness. in the Harrison Ford film. What's his name? He's one of Leonardo DiCaprio's friends.
Oh.
Why am I blanking on his name? He was in Inception. He was in that beginning part of Inception where they're having a dream and he's like in Lebanon or something like that.
I can't remember either.
Yeah, I really like him as an actor, especially when he was younger. He's getting kind of old, and he doesn't even really get that many parts, honestly. But I always liked him as an actor. What's his name? I'm having a hard time finding his name. Yeah, he's not. I'm looking on IMDb, and he's not on this. He's not in the main part, really.
Well, because he's probably not actually considered part of the main.
I didn't realize Albert Hammond Jr. is in this. Like he has a cameo in this.
Oh.
He's in the party scene. Oh, Lucas Haas. So Lucas Haas plays George.
That was Lucas Haas?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you didn't realize that?
No.
Because he looks old and different now,
Yeah.
But he was a kid. He did a lot of good work as a kid. He was in Witness. He played the little Amish kid in Witness. Yeah, he was good. So anyway, he plays Jack's buddy George, and he has a lot of girl problems, and he's like kind of suicidal because of that. He's like Sean Kingston, and you'll have me suicidal when you say it's over. From the song. Sean Kingston is in some heat right now. Because him and his mom have been doing like fraud or whatever.
Yeah, that is just really weird. Yeah. I was not expecting him.
No, me neither. I mean, I thought he was talented. But people want to, keep their money up. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. If you're not having hits, it's like, where do you get money from?
Well, sometimes you just have to do honest work, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's really weird considering that he actually did appear on a Yo Gabba Gabba episode.
Right.
So, kids, hey, yeah, exactly. You want to set a good example for them.
Yeah. So, anyway, we cut to Nellie and Manny talking in the drug room. And he's like, oh, look at this, look at this, look at this. He's like, we have this. And he's like, and that chair was, like, set on by King Louis XIV or something like that. And, she tells him to snort cocaine. He's like, okay. Like, I think he's just like, I'll do whatever you want. I'll do whatever drug you want. Just, yeah, like, let me hang out with you,
Mm-hmm.
And so they're having this conversation, and she asks him, like, where would you want to go? Like, if you could go anywhere, where would you want to go? And he says, he's like, I always wanted to be on a movie set, like, and she's like, yeah? And he's like, yeah, like, I love movies. Like, just... Mm-hmm. He's like, I've always wanted to be on a set and be a part of something, like something that means something. He says that. He's like, I want to be part of something important. And he's like, I just love movies. And she's like, yeah, I love movies too. And they really, bond over that. And he's like, yeah, I love it because you can die, but you're not really dead. Like, he says that. And like, you see the spark, the chemistry between them and like the spark in their eyes when they're talking about film, and it's like, it reminds me of me trying to talk about film with people,
No, he really did remind me of you in that.
yeah, like the passion that he speaks with the film, and then and then she's like, maybe you could be an actor too. She's like, you're not bad looking. That's what she tells him, and then he's like, thank you. Like he doesn't know what to make of it or whatever. And then we see this Chinese young woman. Her name is Lady Fei Zhu, and she does a song for the crowd there, and it's called My Girl's Pussy, is what it's called. And
nice title.
Yeah. There's some double entendres there, and maybe single entendres there too. She goes to one of the tables, and it's like Kaya Gerber is sitting there, and she like kisses her, and everyone's like, ooh, like everyone freaks out. And, yeah, it's a cool little performance. And then after that, so Jack walks up to Faye, and he's like, oh, like, can you flirt with my friend George, like, just make it feel special. You don't have to sleep with him or whatever. And she's like, okay, sure. She sees him, and then he makes him happy with her, And then Nellie goes to the dance floor with Manny, and she starts dancing sexily, and he's just like standing there. He's like, okay, like what do I do?
Okay.
And she's like, grinding and stuff, and then she kisses some random long haired dude on the floor, and then she falls on the floor, and she lays on that DW sign, like it shows her like with the light, like shining on her, and that's like a popular still that you see from the movie.
Oh often. Yeah,
you see that shot a lot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like if you Google Babylon, you're gonna see that shot pop up.
Yeah, it's where she's laying down and she has a cigarette in her mouth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then you see that DW, which I think they actually shot that at like DW Griffith's mansion or something like that, but they changed that to Don Wallach.
Oh yeah.
Just to fit the movie. And then she gets up and stands still, and then she kind of does this move. It's like kind of a weird move that she does. Like it's almost like too choreographed. I thought, like it didn't seem natural. And then she crowd surfs, and everyone's like, And then all of a sudden we see a member of Red Hot Chili Peppers comes out of nowhere and grabs Manny. And that member is not Anthony Kiddis, as Chris would say.
Well, I don't understand why Chris pronounces it that way.
Kiddis. No, it's Fleet, bassist from Red Hot Chili Peppers, acts in this film. And he comes out of nowhere and grabs Manny. And he takes him to the room where the girl was pissing on the guy. And she's like ODing. And they need to get her to the hospital, but they don't want to scare people carrying out this dying girl, they don't want to scare the crowd. Even though I don't think they'd really notice, at a part like this.
Yeah,
I don't think they would notice that.
There are so many people doing who knows what that they probably wouldn't notice.
Yeah, I really don't think so. I remember how there was always people getting taken away at Coachella, there were people just being dragged or whatever.
Yeah, because people would collapse from heat exhaustion.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, well, they're gone. Just carry on with the rest of your day. And then, so they're like, how do we do this? How do we get this girl? And then Manny suggests that they use the elephant to distract the crowd while they carry her out and take her to the hospital. And so that's what they end up doing. People are dancing, the band is playing, then all of a sudden this elephant comes out, and they're like, oh my god, an elephant, or whatever. Like, oh, that's so cool. And then they drag the girl out. But I guess that chick, she was supposed to be the actress in the shoot the next day. The ODing chick.
Oh, yeah.
So they're like, okay, just get any girl. That's what they tell her. Get any girl for the film. So Flea goes out, and he tries to pick a girl at random from the party. But every girl he sees is either, boning or doing something weird or doing drugs or something like that. But then he sees Nellie. She's, the only one who's relatively normal. And he's like, that girl. Get that girl for the movie. Or whatever. So he tells his boys to grab her, and they come up to her and they're like, here you go. They tell her she should get some sleep because she's expected on set in a few hours. And Manny offers his gopher services to Flea on the set too, but he basically was like, no, we're good. He declines his gopher services. And I love the shot of her running out. So when she gets the offer for the gig, and we see her running out the corridor, and she runs outside, and it's daytime already. I love that. I really like that shot. And she throws her hat or something. She throws it as she runs out, and they bring that shot back in the climax of the film at the end. And she says something like, "Kiss my Angelino hooch," or whatever, which. I don't know, was that a thing? Was Angelino a thing at the time?
I didn't think so.
I felt like that came about later,
Yeah.
Angelino. And then hooch, I didn't even know if that was a thing either. I thought hooch was alcohol. When did hooch become cooch or whatever? Because I think that's what she meant, right? Yeah. And then Manny, he's in awe of her, So he tells her, he says, Nelly, creo que te amo. That's what he says to her.
Yes, which, by the way, he tells her, Nelly, I think I love you.
Yeah.
But in the subtitles, which they actually show whenever Manny speaks Spanish, that was badly translated because they translated to, I think, I'm in love with you.
Right.
Being in love is not the same thing as loving someone, by the way. At least not necessarily. So,
right.
Paramount, I don't know, or whoever decided to hire to do the subtitles could have done a better job.
Yeah. They should hire you for that. You would love to do that, right?
I personally would.
Yeah, well, he says that to her in Spanish, and she doesn't understand shit that he's saying. You know what I'm saying? She's just like blowing his ass off, you know? Mm-hmm. And she's like, all right, I gotta go. So she drives off and crashes into some other shit behind her. Like, she like backs up and then she just drives off. And Manny's just like, wow. Like, he's just like in awe of her. And then all of a sudden we hear some guy, he says, Chico, Jack Conrad's passed out. Use one of Wallach's cars to take him home. And he's like, oh, okay. So, like, he's like, that's cool. I get to take Jack Conrad home. I get to drive him home. So he takes Jack home, and Jack gets home, and he's drunk, and he puts on some Italian opera, like a record of that. And Jack asks Manny why the lonely man goes to the movies. And he's kind of like, I don't know. You know, he kind of doesn't know what to make of that. And he's like, we got to innovate. We got to inspire. Like, you know, Jack is really trying to push cinema forward, believe it or not, you know. But kind of in doing that, it kind of killed his career, you know, left him behind. You know, like, sound was an innovation that, you know, ended up killing his career, really, you know. So, you know, in a way, it was bad that he wanted to innovate. Well, you know, it's, if you innovate, you got to make sure that you can still do shit, you know, when that happens. You know what I'm saying?
Of course. Oh, and actually, going back to the term Angelino, actually, now that I'm looking it up, it says that the first known use of Angelino in print was in the mid 19th century, in 1857, according to Merriam-Webster. Says the Oxford English Dictionary notes that the first use in print of a word denoting a resident of Los Angeles appears in California of the South, published in English in 1888.
Wow.
So, once again, this proves us wrong.
Yeah. Chazelle really did his research. But I think I found something a little bit later that he got wrong.
Oh, okay. And I will look it up too.
Okay, we'll see.
Okay, we'll get to it.
So Jack falls back, like, off his Spanish roof, like he falls backwards and falls into the pool. Luckily he didn't die, you know, and Manny is scared because he sees his lifeless body in the pool. Like, he looks over and just sees like this dead floating body in the pool. But then suddenly Jack gets up and he gets out of the pool and he's like, I'm going to bed. And while he's in bed, he tells Manny he likes him. He's like, hey, he's like, I like you. He's like, I want you to take me to set next morning. And so he's like, oh, great. Like, this is my dream. Like, this is going to be my dream. I get to be on a movie set, you know? And he asks him, you know, have you ever been on a movie set? And he's like, no. And he's like, it's the most magical thing in the world. And he's like, oh, okay, you know? So it's like he gets to accomplish his dream that he just said the night before to Nelly, you know? And then right after that, you hear some loud thing, and we finally see the title card of the movie, Babylon. We finally see that. Yeah. 31 minutes into the movie.
Hey,
31 minutos.
Into the movie. But by the way, what Kevin is mentioning, 31 minutos, is a Chilean puppet show. Which, it's, I personally think is great.
It's like a Chilean Muppets, right? Meets Yo Gabba Gabba, kind of.
Well, I guess if you want to describe it that way, but it has it has an endless list of characters because it really has a lot of characters. But I mean, it has, like and even then the main ones, there's still kind of a lot. And, this really has become a phenomenon over the years. And last year, while I was in Mexico City for the summer, I got to see the exhibit at the Franz Mayer Museum, which was really cool.
Yeah, lucky.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And I have a small collection of some of the books. I'm still trying to collect more because I saw that they released some coloring books. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you can, it's on YouTube. They have a lot of episodes on YouTube, so do look it up.
Yeah.
Or and I know that it was on Netflix in some countries. So wherever you are, try to look for
Right.
31 minutos, which means they're 31 minutes.
Yeah.
Because actually the show started as a parody to 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But with puppets. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a cool show. It's very big in Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 31 minutes into the movie, we see the title card. You like that though, right?
Yeah, I personally really like it when the title sequence doesn't come up till way later.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, believe it or not, this is not the longest wait for that. Yeah. I think the record belongs to the Japanese film Bright Future with Tadanobu Asano, and actually that was directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, actually, who did Cure and all that stuff.
Yeah.
He's a very respected Japanese director, but one of his more obscure movies is Bright Future, which came out like in 2005, I think. Kind of hard to find. Yeah, they don't have it on Criterion. I have the DVD, which I'm lucky that I have that, but you don't see the title card for that until like the very end. Like, you know, the movie is like basically coming to an end, and then all of a sudden you see a subtle Bright Future in the corner like pop up. Yeah, so yeah, I think that has the record. But yeah, it's cool that it kicks in so late, right? And then after we see that title card, we see everyone, like all the main characters, like individual struggles. You know, Nellie wakes up hungover after 2 hours of sleeping. That fucking sucks. Like, doesn't it suck when you get like 2 hours of sleep? You're fucking hurting that morning. But
I mean, nowadays it does. When I was younger, I was able to stay up all night and have no major issues. But now, even if I just lose a couple hours of sleep, I'll be suffering the next day.
Sucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we see Faye's family, and they're having an argument with some white guy or whatever. Like, I think it's like a laundry business that they have. And,
well, I mean, that's a huge stereotype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they bring her out, and he sees her, and he's like in awe of her, or whatever. He's like in love with her, so like she signs an autograph for him, and it kind of she gets him off their asses, you know. And then Sydney, the jazz player, he goes home, and he just sleeps on 2 chairs. Like, that's his bed, just 2. He sits on, you know, puts his ass on one and his feet on another chair, and then he just puts like his hat over his head, and that's how he goes to sleep. That's pretty bad. But that's the starving artist life, you know what I mean? Yeah. Especially at that time, you know, it was really you did things for the love of it, not for the money, you know.
Oh yeah, of course.
And
even nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, nowadays a lot of people, you know, they don't have that dedication. You know what I'm saying? They're not willing to sleep on a chair for your art. You know what I mean? You want to get money fast.
Yeah, but I mean, it depends, really.
I mean, I haven't seen that dedication lately, nowadays. You know what I'm saying? And then Jack wakes up Manny. Jack is the one who wakes up Manny. And he's like ready to go. He like throws water in his face, like, "Well, let's go," you know. And Manny's like hurting, like shit, like fucking tired, you know. But Jack's like, "Let's go." I mean, Jack's used to it because he's been doing it for years. You know?
Yeah.
And then Nellie gets to set at 8 a.m. She gets to her set, and the PA grabs her, and we see everything they're shooting on the lot. Like, we see all these different things that they're working on. There's like some blackface in the scene. There's soldiers fighting in Africa. They're making like Chinese movies there, and you know they have like black people working on the set and stuff, and they're like musicians and stuff there too. So you can see that it was actually pretty diverse at the time. Like there was a lot of people of color working on and off the set. It wasn't until a little bit, you know, when the sound came in and more money came in that things got more conservative and segregated, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then there's some guy, he's like selling peanuts on set. and he sees Nellie. He's like, "Hey, like, are you new here?" He's like, "Okay, your first bag's free," and he gives it to Nellie, and she opens a peanut, and there's a pill in there or whatever. And so he's actually like the drug dealer guy or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's weird how the thing how he cut. You could tell he cut, and it was fake. There's no way he had the pill in there, but you know how he cut it. He made it seem like she cracks open and there's a pill in there. Like, oh my god. And they take Nellie to the director, who's a woman, actually, and that's actually Chazelle's wife in real life.
Yeah.
The woman there, yeah. And she has a cameo in La La Land, too. She's the one who's, like, waiting for her coffee from her.
Oh,
yeah.
she's so annoying.
Yeah. And in this, she's kind of annoying, too.
Yeah, I agree. She is.
Sorry. No offense, dude.
Or to her.
Or to her, yeah. It's your characters, really. And she's like, "Who the hell's this? Where's the girl with the tits?" Or whatever. Like, cause when they bring Nellie and then they ask, we juxtapose her first day on set with Manny's first day on set, and they ask him, "Do you have experience with strikes?" And he's just like, "Yes." And I'm sure that's a real stretch, his experience with strikes. Like, he was probably part of one before.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Okay, well, these are all junkies from Skid Row. Deal with them," or whatever. So, I mean, Skid Row, wasn't Skid Row developed after that?
Like, is that what you wanted to point out?
No, but it's something that also came to my mind. Skid Row. Like, were there already homeless, crazy, drugged out people on Skid Row at that time?
Let me check.
Because that's what he says. He's like, "These are all junkies from Skid Row. Deal with them." Because watching that Hotel Cecil documentary, I don't remember. I thought it was developed after that. Skid Row. Like, it turned into that later.
Well, see, here's the thing. And this is according to Wikipedia. I don't know about other sources because anyone can edit Wikipedia, even though actually...
Wikipedia is 100% right.
I don't know about that. Well, even though... When I've tried to edit something...
They don't let you, right?
No, because they block my IP address.
See, that's bullshit.
It is really. It's so stupid. Okay, but what I'm saying is that it has been known for its condensed homeless population since at least the 1930s.
So that was a little bit after. I mean, this is supposed to be 1926 or whatever, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, so that he got wrong, right?
Even though, yes. I mean, I'm assuming. Let me look into it just a little bit more.
Uh-huh.
I mean, even though it says that there has been it has some history starting from the late 19th century, so...
Skid Row?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because there started to be a number of residential hotels opening in the area.
Right.
Yes. Okay, so I guess Skid Row did start there because it says by the 1930s. It doesn't say that it started in the 1930s. Right. It said by the 1930s, Skid Row was home to as many as 10,000 homeless people. Or houseless people.
Okay, well, maybe that is accurate then.
Yes.
Damn it, Chazelle.
And there are sources to this, so it's not like they're just BSing.
Damn you, Chazelle, you strike again. I think I'll get you on this next one, though.
Oh, you're kind of sounding like groundskeeper Willie when he's cursing Skinner.
Yeah. Damn you, Skinner. Ya used me, Skinner. Ya used me.
Hey, we always get really random here. We'll talk about The Simpsons.
Yeah, we're going to have our Simpsons only podcast sometime. It's just going to be all Simpsons all the time. So Spike Jonze is in the film. He plays a German director. He's the one on Manny's set. He's the director of that set. And so there was a lot of directors from Germany at that time, even before World War II. They were coming in the 10s, 20s, directing films because they were making films in Germany. They were making silent films, and the Hollywood producers were like, "Oh shit, these films are the shit. Like, we need to get some of these guys." So they brought in those guys. You know, they brought in F.W. Murnau and some other guys. I guess Pabst, G.W. Pabst or whatever. Like they brought in all these guys with acronym names. This is like Gustav Wilhelm or whatever, GW for short, and yeah, FW more now, Franz Wilhelm or whatever the hell. So yeah, so Spike Jonze, yeah, he's playing this German director, and then yeah, so to deal with the Skid Row crazy people, you can hear this in the background. Yeah. Man, he grabs a gun and he's on horseback and he looks like Emiliano Zapata. He's like, ah! He starts shooting the gun. He's like, yeah, come on. And he scares all the junkies into working, basically.
Yeah.
And so the film, it's like a Middle Ages picture. Like, it's like they're all fighting with chainmail and stuff like that. And yeah, you could see these guys, they're fighting for real. And this is like how they used to do it. They had to have actual extras. You know, there was no CG at that time. There was no CG in the 20s.
No.
You know, no matte paintings or whatever. Like, you needed actual people for these parts. So that's why you needed a shitload of extras. And then, yeah, they're really throwing, you know, spears at each other and people are getting really hurt, you know, on this film. Like, and some guy dies or whatever. He has like a spear through his chest, this one guy. And they're kind of looking around at him, like Lucas Haas, George is looking at him, and the other guys are looking at him. And then one guy was like, well, he did have a drinking problem. That's what he says. And they're like, oh, so he might have ran into it himself. That's what he says. And then Jean Smart is like dictating to a secretary what she sees on set. She's like looking over with the opera glasses, like, oh, look at the actors running and jumping, and then she's telling the chick to type it, and she's like, this is fucking shit. You know, like off record, she says that. And then Manny, he gives a coffee to Irving Thalberg, the character played by Max Minghella, your boy.
For those of you who are not familiar with him, oh my god, he sometimes plays the most annoying characters.
Well, I mean, he was annoying in Social Network, but I still thought he did a great job in that.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a great film.
But I think in the worst one is in The Internship.
I think he's fucking hilarious.
I could not stand him in it.
He plays this, like, pretentious British dude or whatever, and then, you know, Internship's pretty damn funny. Come on, it's pretty damn funny.
Yeah, but he was such a bully, and I'm sorry, but I don't have any sympathy for bullies.
No, I mean, neither do I, but I just thought he was funny. I thought his character was funny. And then, and if you haven't seen The Internship, they go into these teams to compete who's going to win, like, the Google, like, who'll get hired by Google, basically, you know, and then everyone thinks they're a genius and stuff. And then, you know, Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson are part of one team of, like, kind of slackers and nerds and stuff. And then Max Minghella is part of the good team, but he has, like, this big guy on his team. And there's a part where he keeps calling the guy fat or whatever. Right?
See, like, I don't think that's funny, and I'm sorry, but that's just bullying, and this comes from an educator. Yeah. And, you know, I just, as an educator, I do not tolerate bullying in any form.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they wouldn't do this now. When did that movie come out? 2010? 2011?
Something
2012?
Like that. Maybe, it was sometime in the early 2010s.
Yeah, maybe they wouldn't emphasize this fat aspect so much, but he was looking at the guy, because the fat guy is not keeping up or whatever, and he's like, so fat. Whatever, like, you think he's gonna cut, but he just dwells on, the shot stays on him saying, so fat.
Okay. Alright. I think I need some of you to give feedback on it, but I just feel like that's very politically incorrect, on top of the fact that I don't think that's funny.
No, yeah, you're right.
Making fun of, you know, because he was making fun of his appearance.
Yeah. They wouldn't do that nowadays. They would do it in early 2010s, but probably not now.
Even then, that wasn't that long.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't, but it just shows you how far we've come from then. So anyway, so Manny gives a coffee to him, Max Minghella, who plays Irving Thalberg, and he's like the studio head, or whatever. He's one of the studio heads. And he gives him the coffee, and he's like trying to impress him, you know? Yeah. And then he just says, gracias. And he takes the coffee, and Manny is like offended by that. Like, he doesn't like that. He speaks to him in Spanish, and he doesn't like that, or whatever, you know? And then Jack has this fake nose, and he's putting on, he he's putting it on, and he's making a phone call to try to make deals and try to cast another movie. And then, because this is like an epic, Middle Ages war film, there's horses running around, and then the horse knocks down the camera and it breaks or whatever, so they need to get another one. And so they're like, "Hey, Miguel, go get a new camera," whatever. And he's like, "Man, what, actually?" So he's like, "Okay, you need to go here and get a camera." And he's like, "Okay, sure." He just wants to help out the team, so he goes, he hauls ass to get the camera, and then on Nellie's side, we see her about to do her scene, and it's her at a bar, and she flirts with these bearded men, these other like Duck Dynasty looking dudes, and
more of those.
yeah, and she tells the bartender, she's like, "Santa, get me wet," or whatever. She starts taking shots, and she gives guys other shots, and she kisses some guy, and she sticks her hand down his pants, stuff like that. And the director, the Chazelle's wife, is like, "Okay, like keep going," She's like, she's into it, I guess. And we juxtapose that with Manny hauling his ass to get the camera. He's driving through trees and shit. And here, what's interesting is, so we see Jack on the phone, and he's telling dialogue, because he's saying, "Okay," and then he says, "Hasta la vista, motherfucker," and "Frankly, Scarlett, you're a cunt." That's what he says. I guess that's gonna be dialogue. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's my anachronism. So motherfucker, they say motherfucker a lot here, but from what I know, motherfucker didn't really come out to like the 50s or whatever, because it was like in jazz lingo. So but later jazz. I don't think it was that early. So in the 20s, were they saying motherfucker?
Let me look that up.
Okay.
Okay.
See if I can get Chazelle. Because Spike Jonze also says motherfucker. He's like, come on, motherfucker. And what's the verdict?
History and popular culture. The word dates back at least to the late 19th century. And then
What?
In an 1889 Texas murder case, a witness testified that the victim had called the defendant a goddamn motherfucking bastardly son of a bitch shortly before his death.
What the fuck? What the hell? Damn it!
Yes.
I thought motherfucker didn't come out till way later. From what I heard, I didn't hear about this West Texas shit, whatever the fuck. But that's a pretty cool line, though. That should be like an album title.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. I gotta write that down.
Yeah, so that's what I'm seeing.
Okay. Damn you, Chazelle. You got me again. Okay.
Once again, groundskeeper Willie to Principal Skinner.
Yes, Chazelle. Yes, Chazelle. But there you go. He did his fucking research. I mean, you can't knock his hustle. Come on, Schrader. Give him some fucking credit. Yeah, so Spike Jonze is cussing out his cast and crew. Manny gets to the camera shop, and the clerk is this weird guy, which is great casting by Chazelle. He picked the perfect guy, perfect weirdo guy. And so Manny has to wait 30 minutes for the camera to come back, the 2709 Bell and Howell or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I would always see those. When I would go to like thrift stores, I always saw Bell and Howard cameras there, 8mm cameras and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a real brand. And the cast and crew are just sitting down, kind of waiting to shoot. And then Jean Smart, the Eleanor St. John character, she asks some guy, like, "Are you married?" And he's like, "Wife's dead." And she's like, "Oh, dreadfully sorry." Like, it's just a nice little piece of humor, dark humor. And then the camera comes back to that store, the camera rental store, and he says he needs to be in Simi Valley in 20 minutes. Which Simi Valley, by the way, that's where all the cops live. They all live at Simi Valley.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And so he says he needs to be in Simi Valley in 20 minutes, and he sees some old school ambulance across the street, and he's like, I have an idea, whatever. So, and then we see Samara Weaving. She's acting in the film that Nellie's doing. So, Samara Weaving, I forgot what her character is in this film, but she's acting opposite. She's like this really the star of that film that that Nellie is doing, but Nellie is like stealing the show. So it's like she's really the one. Constance Moore, that's her character. So she's really supposed to be the star of it, but Nellie's really stealing the show. So Samara Weaving walks in, and you know they don't expect Nellie to be a good actress at all. She's like she can't cry on demand. She's just a fucking drunk girl they found at the party or whatever, you know. But so they shoot the scene, and she's able to cry on command. Like they're like, oh shit, this girl knows what she's doing.
Is it called cry on command or cry on cue?
Well, you could say it either way. I guess cry on cue. Okay. And Spike Jonze on his set, he's crying, he's sad, and he apologized to God for squandering the light, that he gave. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, God, to ruin the light, the beautiful light that you gave us, or whatever. And then you start hearing some sirens, and he's like, what's this bullshit? Or whatever. And then we see that it's Manny driving in this ambulance, or whatever. So that's how he was able to haul ass, because he stole that ambulance, and he was able to just cut through traffic and stuff. Not that I would expect there to be a lot of traffic. This is the fucking 20s. I don't expect...
Yeah, but the roads are probably a lot smaller.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So he just hauled ass in that ambulance. And then we cut back to Nellie's set, and they keep doing the take where where Constance Moore walks in and opens the door into the bar, and she sees Nellie on top of the bar, and the director gives her very specific instructions to cry. And then Constance asks the director, like, oh, any notes for me? And she's like, you're fine. And then the look that Samara Weaving gives is hilarious. She's perfect as like a 20s stick up her ass actress. So she's perfect for that. And then on the war film, Jack stumbles out of his tent drunkenly. He's like, oh my god. And he's having a hard time keeping his balance. And then it's magic hour now, right? We know what that means, right? So that means when the sun has pretty much set, but there's still some light, and that's considered the best lighting. That's why they call it that. That's why they call it magic hour. And then now it's kind of trendy. Now you hear people...
Is it magic hour or golden hour?
Well, you could call it either way. I mean, I guess golden hour, too. Maybe they call it that more now, but it was historically called magic hour. So yeah, like, that's... it's kind of been trendy nowadays. Like, people... now have realized, oh, that's like what movies do to get like beautiful lighting, and you can do it in like sunrise and sunset, because it basically has that same look. And so they're trying to get Jack up the hill, and they're struggling, and you can see the silhouette of them like on the hill, and it almost reminds you of The Seventh Seal, the Bergman film, another Bergman reference of them like trying to have them on the hill, like, kind of frolicking on the hillside, and we see their black silhouettes. It's like the same thing, but they're pushing a drunk guy up this hill, and so they're pushing him up, and then he's about to do the scene, and everybody looks on, and they focus on Manny looking at that scene. Like, Manny's like really like invested. He's really looking at the action. He's like, oh my god, like this is it. Like, this is the magical scene. Like, this is cinema. That's why they focus on it, because that's really what he's kind of thinking in his head. Like, oh my god, I get to see this. This is the magic of cinema. So, and then Jack walks in, and then he like keels over, like he's about to throw up or whatever. But then he gets back up, and then you see this chick is like his queen or whatever in the scene, and Spike Jonze, the director, he's like, okay, cue the live music. And then, so we see there's a symphony there playing the music for the scene. And it's like, oh, that's dope. Like the fact that it's live. You know what I mean? I mean, like Wong Kar-wai, he'll play music on the set, but this is live music. You know what I'm saying? This is having the mamas and papas there on the set singing, while Faye Wong is in the diner. You know what I'm saying?
Which, by the way, if you haven't watched Chungking Express, please do.
Yeah, you must be living under a rock if you haven't seen.
Yeah, and actually haven't watched it on the big screen a few years ago.
Yeah,
it was great.
In New York, right?
No less.
Yeah, exactly. It was during like the re-release of those, of like it was like Wong Kar Wai week. Mm-hmm. And we were lucky to see Chungking. I wanted to see all of them, but we didn't have time.
No, I mean when you only have 1 week in New York, it's just never enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And on the other set, Nellie's set, the set catches fire. Fire starts going off, but the director wants to keep shooting. She's like, no, just keep shooting, and and then Nellie, she cries like the perfect final tear. Yeah. You know, they get it, and then we see Jack on his set. He kisses the queen. You know, he embraces her, and then a butterfly comes and lands on his shoulder. You know, and they're trying to show like that's the magic of cinema. Like you can't predict something like that when you're in nature. You know, you don't expect something like that. You can't do that with CGI. I mean, you can, but it doesn't have the same feel. It definitely doesn't. You know, and Manny sees it live. You know, it's the magic of cinema. You know, they print the film, we see it go through the reel, and then Spike cuts, and he's like, cut, and he's like, yeah, he's like, he could see that was so beautiful, and then both crews cheer, like the crew on Nellie's side and the crew on Manny's side, like, and then Manny starts to cheer too. He's like, and then we see Don Wallach come to set. We kind of saw him a little bit at the party. So Don Wallach is played by a random actor. Jeff Garland plays Don Wallach.
Well, I don't think he's that random. More like, he just, I don't know, he's had a weird career.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I think he's random. I think they just wanted a guy who kind of looks like Harvey Weinstein. And so they're like, who can we get who kind of looks like him, but isn't him, to freak everyone out? And he's impressed by Nellie. He sees her acting, you know, crying, and he's like, "Who the fuck is that?" He's like smoking a cigar or whatever. And then Lady Faye, she asks who's writing the titles for this, you know, because she writes a lot of the movie titles at that time, you know. And then the director, after everything's cut, she walks up to Nellie and she's like, "How do you keep crying like that?" And Nellie's like, "I just think of home." And then cuts. You know? And you want to take a break?
Let's take a break.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Maybe we might have to pick this up like another time, right?
But let's see how I'm feeling in a few minutes.
Okay, we'll take a break. Thank you. We'll be right back.
Why do you have...
Hey, we're back.
We're back for part 2 of Babylon.
Yes, I was about to say we're back for Scenes from a Marriage part 2. Just because of the whole bed thing, I mentioned that in the first episode, the first part of this episode. Yeah, so we took a break, and now we're back. It was kind of a long break.
Yeah, it was almost a week long.
Yeah.
Well, just our schedules don't always pair up, despite the fact that we're married and we live together, obviously.
Yeah.
But my schedule has been pretty crazy, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Scenes from Marriage. Sure. So we continue with Babylon, the Damian Chazelle film. So where we left off was the end of them on the set. So like they're both on the set for the first time, really. So
yeah.
Nellie finishes her scene where she's crying at the bar, and Manny finishes that scene that he helped go for, and Brad Pitt kisses the queen, and the butterfly lands on his shoulder. It's a beautiful moment.
Oh.
And everybody, the crew, claps and stuff. So that's where he left off, and
yes.
And so yeah, Nellie says, like, because the director asks her, "How do you keep crying on cue like that?" You know? And she's like, "I just think of home." And then we'll pause and then cut to champagne popping, and it's a studio party. And I guess it's kind of a rap party.
Yeah.
And the guy Don Wallach, played by Jeff Garlin. He's
yeah, I thought that was weird casting, but in a way it does make sense.
yeah, because I guess they just wanted someone who looks kind of Weinsteinish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that just gives me the
Heebie-jeebies.
yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking about. Like I was about to say they're heebie-jeebies, or just it's just pure cringe.
For the CBGBs.
No, that's way too cool. Way too cool. I would not even put those together.
Yeah. Yeah. So he did a good job. They were trying to creep out the audience into thinking that was Harvey Weinstein in a movie. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, even though I feel that Jeff Garlin tends to be in sillier content than that, so
Yeah.
it is still somewhat unexpected.
Yeah.
But I guess, it makes sense in a way.
Well, a lot of comedians have their turn at drama. You know, you've seen it. You know, John Candy did it, and JFK, and comedians eventually do that one or two drama roles in their careers. You know.
Yeah, but most people don't see it that way, or at least I don't think they notice it, do they?
Like the audience, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the ones who pay attention will notice. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he's the studio head, and he's very excited. And he said, "Here's Tom."
Yes. So if you
Showing
see it on
his
screen,
butthole.
yes. So he's okay. I think I'm going to start censoring certain things. So what are you
Okay,
doing?
Tom, you can sit in the middle.
What are you doing, buddy?
But no, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So this
Cats
might be
and movies.
okay. This might be not suitable for work. And actually, he just walked away. So we're good to continue.
Yeah, we'll see if he comes back. So, Don Wallach says he tells someone at the party, we're very excited about Nellie Leroy. She's our new star. And they're like, okay, which one is she? And then we see her in the background, like this depth of field shot, and she's like jacking off this ice sculpture unicorn thing. And he says,
TMI.
He's like, oh, she's the one making love to the ice sculpture. But yeah, this movie moves hella fast. This is the quickest 3 hours you'll ever spend.
Yeah, so that's what I don't understand. I went on to Reddit to read that a lot of people were complaining about the length of this film. Which to me, I didn't even. It's not even a slow movie. At least not
at all. It moves hella fast. Like I said, it's the quickest 3 hours you'll ever spend. I think, in a theater anyway. So Manny, he becomes like Jack's assistant. He basically becomes his assistant. He says he likes him. So Jack tells Manny to get flowers for this opera chick. Even though she doesn't speak any English, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He wants to spit some game to her. I guess Olga Pudi is her name.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what's going on in Manny's world. And then we cut to this premiere that they're gonna have for Nellie's film, the film that she did at the bar where she's crying, and she's outside the theater, and they won't even let her in. Like, they won't even let her in to see her own movie. So she basically has to lie just to get into the movie, and so she pays off some guy to be like, oh, Nellie Leroy, like, can I have your autograph or whatever? And then when the ticket attendant lets her in, she pays off the guy or whatever. Says that. So she's in the theater, and it's like, I like how it's all red. Like, you can feel the heat.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In the theater. And like, she's there and she's kind of nervous watching the movie, and like, the crowd likes the movie. She can feel it. She can hear them laughing and stuff, and she starts smiling, like Nellie's happy, and it's kind of funny. Like, it's similar to the scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where she plays Sharon Tate, and she goes to one of her movies. She sees herself in the movie as Sharon Tate, and it's kind of interesting that she's done this sort of thing a couple times.
Maybe Damian Chazelle was very conscious of that. He probably did take it from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, he might have been.
Yeah.
I mean, it just fit the scene. Nellie's dad is played by Eric Roberts, and he's kind of a sleazy dude. Like, he's kind of trying to make a name for himself. You know, he's trying to like take advantage of her fame any chance he gets.
Jeez.
You know,
Nepo dad, I guess.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, he's riding her coattails. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny, they show that Nellie and Constance Moore, played by Samara Weaving, they become like a team, kind of. You know, like
Yeah.
their you know, buddy films are like taking over the world or whatever, and then they show the photo of Constance and her like snotty face. It's just funny. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and they become a team, even though Constance hates Nellie. She on the set, she's like yelling at the director, and she says she's icing her nipples. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
that is ridiculous. When I first heard it, I'm like, what is that supposed to mean?
yeah. She's like, she's icing her nipples. Like, she's trying to take my screen time or whatever. And she's like, what the hell do you mean? She's like, what do you mean ice my nipples? This is all natural. She's like, you're just complaining because yours look like fucking latkes.
Were latkes even popular at the time?
Yeah,
Speaking of, okay,
it's been a Jewish thing for a long time. Like,
but were there already a lot of Jews at the time?
Yeah, there were a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then Nellie is like, you know, kind of pulling pranks on Constance, and she puts like a wood dildo in her trailer, and she's like, she put this in my trailer. And Nellie's like, I don't even know what the fuck that is.
Yeah, I still find that really weird. I mean, amongst other things, but it's like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And I mean, we already know she's pretty wild, but still.
Yeah. But yeah, like Constance is getting pissed off because she's the producer and it's her company, so that kind of gives Nellie a light bulb moment, and then we see that Jack marries that Olga chick who doesn't speak any English, and he's happy. And then
weird.
So Nellie decides to get nose surgery overnight. She calls the doctor and says, "Oh, remember that surgery I was talking about having?" And she gets that overnight. She shows up to set all bandaged and stuff. And they're like, how long is that going to take to heal or whatever? And they're saying, oh, we can't shoot. Like, we're going to have to put the production on hold. And we see Constance is like sad now because she'll be losing money from that. So then it kind of goes by really fast. Like, we see the newspaper and it says that Constance Moore's company goes bankrupt or whatever. And so Nellie did that on purpose, you know?
Yeah.
And, and it kind of shows Nellie's rise, you know, in that whole montage. And then I like this shot of Nellie looking at the camera. Is it Nellie or is it Margot? Like she's looking at the...
you don't know whether it's the character or the actress.
Yeah, because you can tell they edited it in. Like, it was like a screen test or something. Like, it was like random footage that they shot of her looking at the camera. Do you remember this scene? There's like a scene where it's during this thing and she's wearing like the red dress or something like that. Mm-hmm. And she's looking at the camera and she's like playing with her hair or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's acting at all, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it just doesn't look like it's from the era either.
Yeah, it looks like...
Yeah.
It looks like, Margot. And they kind of... But I like it. I think it's cool. Because it makes it look like a music video or something, you know? It's a cool insert.
Yeah. And by the way, if you suddenly see me zoom in somehow to the camera, like if you see me like move towards the camera, it's because I'm trying to distract Tom.
It's because of Tom Hanks. That's why.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of movies and actors, Tom Hanks.
Yeah, that's our cat's name.
Yeah,
and he was already named that way. Right?
Yes, he was.
We didn't name him that. So.
And this was and he's already gone through a couple humans, so
yeah.
So he was already named Tom Hanks at the time.
Right, exactly. So it was meant to be.
Yes.
So yeah, I like that shot a lot. I think it's pretty cool, and it almost made it kind of looks like a music video, which made me think like Tame Impala should do a music video with Margot Robbie. That would be like the perfect combination, don't you think?
Well, you already know how I really feel about her. So,
Well, you don't love her, right?
I mean, I just think that they really need to vary it up when it comes to movies, and she's casted a lot. So,
Yeah, you feel like she's in every damn movie. Right?
pretty much.
Um, so yeah, so then we see Nellie. She's become like Hollywood's it girl, basically,
Yeah.
overnight, and then we see Jack in the bathroom, and some guy comes in, some industry guy comes in and tells him about this sound movie that's going to come out soon.
Pardon me?
Okay. Um, this sound movie that's going to come out is going to change the game forever, called The Jazz Singer. And Jack asks him, like, are you sure? Do you think the audience wants that sound in their movies? And since they're in the bathroom, they hear, like, someone taking a shit. They're like, you can hear this diarrhea going off right when he says that.
I don't get all the fecal matter that goes into the movie. I mean, first the elephant and then that. It's just,
well, I guess that's part of why people don't like it, you know?
But I guess it shows you that it's human nature.
Yeah, and elephant nature. So yeah, we hear that diarrhea in the background.
Or anything involving living things. Or most living things.
Yeah. Yeah, we hear the diarrhea going off. Because Jack's like, are you sure the audience wants that sound in their movies? And then you hear going off. And then the guy's like, yeah, why not? Like, it's a little heavy-handed, but it is funny. And then Jack's at home telling Manny and others about sound film and how that's gonna like change the game and revolutionize things. And then Olga, his new wife, is pissed off and she's throwing shit and screaming in her language.
Well, yeah, I guess you would think that, or at least he would think that things would be better this marriage, this time around with this other marriage. But no, not really.
Yeah, no, not at all. And then we see Manny go to New York to the premiere of Jazz Singer. I guess he's kind of like on assignment. Like Jack tells him, like, okay, go to the premiere of this, do your research and let us know what's going on. And then he sees Nellie in New York. He bumps into her, and they ride together in a taxi to escape the crowd clamoring for her.
Yes, this scene is very interesting, actually.
Yeah, and then that theme kicks in, the Manny and Nellie theme.
Yeah.
Which is very reminiscent of the City of Stars
yes.
theme. And something I've said before is that I think it's extra hard for Chazelle, in a way, to be a director because he knows music so well. I think it makes it even harder for him. Because
yeah, I can definitely see that as more of a challenge.
Yeah, because it gives you too much to think about, in a way. Like, it gives him another level that he needs to direct a film on, because most directors, they don't, they're not musicians, so they don't know it so well, or it's like they let the music department handle that kind of, you know what I'm saying? They might know what songs they want, like what pop songs they want to put in certain scenes, and that's about it, you know what I'm saying? And they know visually what they want, and, storyline if they write it themselves too. But, and not just that, he has to think about it on the musical level too. Like it's hard to separate his musical mind from, his visual mind, his writing mind, you know what I'm saying? I think it would be hard for him to separate that, because he'll be, the guy Hurwitz, the composer,
Justin Hurwitz.
Yeah, Justin Hurwitz, he'll compose something and he'll watch it and he'll be like, wait, because he knows music so well, he'll be like, wait, this note, I don't know if this note should go right here on this part, maybe change this note. Like, most directors, not knowing music that well, wouldn't even think about that. They'd just be like, okay, sounds good, okay, and then, or be like, doesn't sound good, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But he has to kind of micromanage the music as well, you know what I'm saying? Which I think makes it even harder for him, because it's like hard for him to escape that part of his brain. But he manages to do music really well.
Yeah.
In all.
No, it's true.
So, yeah, and so Manny tells Nellie that he's working with Jack Conrad, Brad Pitt's character, and she freaks out. She's like, "Oh, Jack Conrad, I would so fuck him." That's what she says. And then Manny's like, okay. Like, what about me?
Yeah, well, I thought you both had something going on. Why are you looking at? Why? Well, why are
Well,
you?
they never got together.
Oh, not at least not officially, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. But I mean, I think, we knew that Manny liked her because he told her that he was falling in love with her, right?
Well, yeah, he did say earlier in the movie, like,
Yeah.
I think, I think I love you.
Yeah.
Even though, like I said, they translated it wrong in the subtitles.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I think she never looked at him that way, in a way. You know what I'm saying? Not till later, maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe she never did. I don't know. Because
I think later on she did, but she had already messed up really bad.
Her life too much.
Yeah.
Just couldn't go anywhere. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so and they kind of she tells him that her dad is her manager, but he can't count and he can't spell. But and I like how her rationale. She's like, he's my dad. What else is he gonna do?
Yeah.
like she's just kind of like, that's his job. It's like it's like Hispanic people with when they have kids. It's like, oh, like grandma is the nanny, of course. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's kind of like they always use the one who's the most undereducated, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
It's really sad, actually.
Yeah, but it just happens like default, So as they're in the cabin, they stop by some random asylum or whatever. Like, it's kind of vague. Like, you don't realize where they are at first, but then we can see, it's like some asylum.
Yeah.
And I guess Nellie is there to visit her mother. We don't really know who that lady is at first, but we kind of put two and two together. And I guess her mother went crazy and she doesn't want to talk. So they bring her out and she just kind of stands there. And Nellie and Manny kind of look at her and they kind of don't know what to do. So they're just like, okay, bye, So then they just leave and go in the car. And I think it affects her, but she doesn't want to say it. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't know how to put that into words, seeing her mom in that state, And as they leave in the cab, she mentions something interesting. She mentions how she hates people who put toppings on ice cream. She's like, I hate how people put topping on ice cream. Just fucks up a good thing.
Well, she specifically said sprinkles, didn't she?
Yeah, sprinkles, yeah. She's like, you know what? I hate when people put sprinkles on ice cream. Just fucks up a good thing.
I don't... Yeah, when I first heard that, I was like, I don't know what's wrong with that. I love sprinkles on my ice cream.
I know you do.
I love sprinkles on anything, like on cakes, on cookies. I mean, I don't know. That's just me. Wow, that's just her. That thing. She's just the antithesis of me.
You got triggered by that.
I kind of. But I mean, that's part of what makes the movie even more interesting.
So isn't it funny that why would she mention that right there?
It was very random.
Yeah,
because I mean, it just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has some sort of connection to her mother and stuff like that. Like maybe her mom liked to do that or something, and that's why she brought it up or whatever.
And it just to show
she never liked that.
It just to show their strained relationship in a way.
Yeah, that could be it. Like I kind of agree with her a little bit. Like I'm more of a basic kind of guy. Like
I know you really are.
I don't need sprinkles on it. You know what I'm saying? I don't need sprinkles on ice cream or whatever. If it's there, I'll eat it, but it has to be good. You know what I mean? Like, it has to make it shine. Has to make it sing even more with it. You know what I'm saying?
Good point.
So I thought that was very interesting by Chazelle to throw that in. And she said that she always disappointed people her whole life, and she kind of vents to Manny in the car, and she asks if he likes ice cream, and he says, of course. And he mentions how his family lives in LA, and she thought they were in Mexico, but then he says he crossed the border when he was 12, and that's interesting too because he says, "Oh, my family is there. They're in LA." He's like, "I can see them in 30 minutes if I want to." He's like, "But I don't." You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
isn't that interesting how he brings that up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting, but I think he also brings that up. I don't know, like that. I feel like that got incorporated into the movie because I'm pretty sure that a lot of people relate to that. Like,
Yeah.
they still have their family in somewhere nearby, but they don't really see them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that is why he threw that in. I think a lot of people can relate to that. People who live near their family, but they don't necessarily see them often or at all.
True.
So they part ways. She kind of lets him out, and he goes to the theater where they're playing Jazz Singer, and he sits down like pretty late into the movie. Like he goes in and um, like I can tell that he really likes Nelly, so he's thinking more about her. Like he's like thinking about like he had such a nice time hanging out with her in the car and stuff like that. But then all of a sudden he sees that the movie is getting like a standing ovation or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What the fuck?" or whatever. So, and we see a little bit of the movie play on the screen or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh my god!" Like he's looking at the reaction. He's like, "Oh shit!" And so he runs out. He runs out of the theater to the nearest payphone, and he calls Jack, and he tells him, "Jack, like this is gonna change everything," and it fades out or whatever. And I guess that's kind of the end of the first act. You know what I mean? You could say, that Nelly part where she's crying. When they finish that scene, I thought that was kind of the end of the first act, but I guess this is really kind of the end of the first act. Because that really closes that cycle. This is like the beginning of the end, as far as like sound film coming in, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
This is the first sound film and it's going to change everything. And a lot of these people's lives are going to change, because of this. And, so it is like the end of the first act, which is longer than most first acts because it's a longer movie. You know what I'm saying? Most first acts are like 30 minutes, you know what I mean? But this one is like an hour, basically,
Wow.
So next we see a movie set. We kind of fade up from black, and we see this movie set in a studio now, and it's 1928. And so they're trying to shoot Nelly's first film with sound.
Yeah.
And it's a very complicated process, to say the least.
Oh.
We see her walking into a dorm room, and she's like, "Well, hello, college." Like that's her line. But it's hot on set because of the lights and stuff, and there needs to be silence, on set because of the audio now, and like something keeps fucking up every time they shoot the scene. Something just fucks up, and this is a very frustrating scene. Almost as frustrating as the entirety of the movie Mother by Darren Aronofsky. It was very frustrating.
Pardon? Sorry everyone. I'm just trying to distract Tom Hanks because he keeps over grooming, which he shouldn't be doing. So
yeah.
Yeah, but in the process, I may do some goof up.
Yeah. Thanks for letting us know. Yeah, and so they need to do this scene like 50 million times. Do you like this scene?
It's kind of a weird scene. It's kind of uncomfortable, actually.
Really?
But I mean, for me, to some degree.
Yeah, like they keep shooting this, and you can even see like the sweat on her feet, like when she walks in, trying to hit her mark. Like you can see like the glistening of her feet there, so you can tell how hot it is. And her hair keeps getting more jacked up and jacked up as the scene goes on. As the takes keep going on, and the cinematographer wants to come out because he says it's fucking hot, but they're like, "Stay in the damn box!" Like he has to stay in this box while they shoot. And great casting on the guy who has the clacker. Like he's the guy who does take 17 like his lisp is funny. It's funny that they casted that guy.
Well, I think that's
why they did that.
It was intentional.
Yeah. Perfect. But just someone keeps fucking up the scene. And then the assistant director guy is getting more and more pissed off.
Yeah.
And then they're about to shoot again, another take, and then the door opens and a Wallach walks in. They're like, oh, hey, he's about to chew him out. But then it's like, oh, hey, Don Wallach or whatever. Yeah, he's about to get pissed off, but he like controls himself, you know. Mm-hmm. And the DP in the box, he's sweating fucking bullets. He comes out like, oh my god, he's like drenched. And the sound guy keeps hearing some squeaking because someone has a watch or whatever, and they're not allowed to have like electronic devices or whatever. You want to call that an electronic device?
Some sort of device. Yeah. Because they did not have electronics at the time.
Yeah. Or very, very primitive electronics.
Yeah.
And it's like Nellie is under a fucking heat lamp. She's like a Jack in the Box taco or whatever. Like it's just like, you know, all the.
Well, if only she were a Jack in the Box taco. Because now you got me some cravings.
Then you would love her, right?
Yes.
And then some guy sneezes on one of the takes, and the AD just explodes. He just chews everybody's ass. He just fucking screams, and he's like, "Oh, fucking fuck your face!" Like, he just chews out everyone. And they're like, and then everyone kind of was like, "Okay, well, let's try this one last time." And so they do the scene again, but Nellie misses her mark. And the director tells her, and Nellie screams like "fuck!" And then everybody just gets into a fight, and Nellie attacks the sound guy. The AD shoves the DP back into the box, and he's like, "Shut the fuck up! The next person who fucks up this scene, I will shit in your fucking mouth."
Yeah, it was just a complete disaster.
Yeah. So they all calm down, and they do the scene again. And it's perfect. They finally get it done. They cut. They celebrate. They're happy. The AD knocks on the DP's little door of his room. And he opens the door, and the DP falls out onto the floor. And they check his pulse, and they're like, he's dead.
Oh.
Yeah. So that guy like died of heat stroke in there or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what it was.
Yeah. It's pretty bad. And cut to, it's another rap party, you know, or something. It's another party, and now Jack is with this theater actress, who's played by Sam Waterston's daughter. I forgot what her name is, but yeah, she's his daughter. And Nellie is riding on top of some USC football team players, and I like how she says, "It's party time, Sparkle Cocks."
Yeah, I mean, just her wildness is just like,
yeah.
Oh, jeez, like
she's a wild one.
Yeah.
And then her dad, played by Eric Roberts, he's talking to everyone, and he's talking a lot of shit. You know, he's trying to think he's the shit. You know, and he keeps telling everyone, "Oh, I fought a rattlesnake one time." Nellie's getting annoyed hearing that shit, and man, he tells Jack that George is suicidal again, and we see George, played by Lucas Haas. He's in the bathroom, and I guess he was trying to go with some lesbian chick or something like that. So that's why
that's a weird
that's why he's all sad. And then the jazz dude Sydney, he's playing the party too, so he's playing trumpet there, and Lady Faye does another performance at the party. And she chooses to dance with Nellie. And, you know, earlier in the film, when she was, like, editing the film, she was doing the titles for it, that Lady Faye, and she asked the assistant with her, was like, "Oh, do you think she swings both ways or whatever?" Like, meaning, you know.
Yeah, well, we already know what Lady Faye was singing earlier.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. So here, I think she's, like, making a move, so she chooses to dance with Nellie, and you know, it's like she's been eyeing her ever since she saw her earlier, you know, on the set. And yeah, I guess she's a switch hitter, like Mickey Mantle.
Well, I mean, I'm not surprised. Like, you can see that she's just, at least Nelly is trying to experiment.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they dance and then they kiss after that, and everyone's like, ooh, yeah. And Nelly goes to the bathroom after that, and she's kind of like, oh my god, that was fun, whatever.
Huh.
And she overhears some guys talking about sound movies coming in, and they're talking about how Nelly is a horrible actress with a horrible voice, and this pisses her off hearing this. And so she goes out, and she's like saying, "Don't be a fucking baby." That's
Yeah, like, well, because it's, you can see she starts to get emotional, but then she's kind of like, you need to suck it up, like, take the criticism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then,
yeah, like, just like absorb it, I guess.
Yeah. And then we see Irving Thalberg, played by Max Minghella, at the party. And
Oh, don't even get me started about that guy. But well,
internship.
Yeah, I don't know if I can watch that movie again.
Yeah,
and mainly for him, really. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, though it's weird seeing Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn like, trying to officially get into Google and go through the whole process, but
it's funny that Max Minghella has been in a movie about Google and about Facebook. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's next? Yahoo, the musical, or whatever. Like,
just no. I don't know. I really could not stand his character in The Internship.
Yeah, I know you hate it. So yeah, Irving gives his card to the jazz guy Sydney, and he says, "Oh, we need more musicians, so let me know if you want to work for me." And he's kind of like, "Okay, well that might be interesting. At least I might get more pay, you know." So he goes up to her dad, Nellie's dad, who's trying to chat up some lady, and says he was telling her about the snake story, and Nellie tells the whole party, like, "Hey, like, who wants to see my dad fight a snake?" And they're like, "Ah!" And he's like, "Wait, what the hell are you doing?" You know, he's like, "What do you mean fight a snake?" And so they're like, "Yeah, let's go. I want to see your ass fight a fucking snake or whatever." So then they all like get in their cars and they're like Model Ts, and they drive out to the desert.
Yeah. And then once they get there, it's like they all start forming a circle around her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and then but on the way there, Nellie's like in the car with Jack's fiance.
Oh.
And she's telling him about Charlie Chaplin and Gary Cooper's penis.
Okay, thank you.
I was thinking about Gary Cooper, super duper.
Oh, jeez.
Putting on the Ritz. That you know that fits the time period. You know that was like from around that time that the original Putting on the Ritz.
Oh yeah.
Came out.
Well, not the taco one.
Yeah, not the taco one.
Yeah.
Speaking of tacos.
Yeah.
I love that song.
No, it's a really good one too.
Yeah. For some reason, people find that creepy. I don't find that song creepy. But maybe.
How so?
I don't know.
Why?
I've heard people say that they find that song creepy. I don't know. Maybe just the old 20s-ness factor. 20s meets Kraftwerk factor. I don't know.
Oh.
20s meets Kraftwerk or 20s meets Falco?
I was thinking maybe more
Falco
than Kraftwerk.
Yeah. Okay. Now that we've established that. So yeah, they get into a circle with their cars, kind of lighting up the scene. You know, that's like a cliche, like a standard cliche of. We've seen it in Never Back Down.
Oh, another movie I can't talk about.
We've seen it in Point Break.
At least if Kevin decides to do an episode on Never Back Down,
no.
I will not be the guest.
No, you will not be.
I will.
That would be best for everyone involved with that. So yeah, they're in the desert. They're surrounding the dad, and he's fucking drunk as shit. His hair is like all over the place, and there's a rattlesnake there, and he's like, "Well, if you wanna fight the snake, you gotta assume the position of a mongoose," and you're just like, "What the fuck is he talking about?"
Yeah, I thought that was really weird.
Yeah, and he's like, he does this weird pose, and his teeth are like, there's something like. Something about his teeth look anime-ish there to me. I don't know if it's just because they look so huge, like they look like big anime teeth.
Weird.
So yeah, the rattlesnake is there and it's like shaking, and then he just passes out right there in front of the snake. And Nellie gets pissed off that he didn't fight the snake, and she's like, "What the fuck? Like, I want to see song, fight the fucking snake." Come on, you guys, and she's pointing out the USC guys, but they don't want to do it. Yeah. And she's like, "Ah, you're a bunch of pussies." You're a 6-foot vagina. That's what she tells them.
Yeah, that's just. I mean, very derogatory, yeah. Which I guess people weren't thinking about it at the time, but it's. Yeah. Well, I could get more into it, but let's continue.
Yeah. So she just grabs the snake, and she's like, "See? Look how easy that was." And then all of a sudden the snake bites her and just like latches onto her, and she's like, "Ah!" She freaks out, and then Manny like tries to get close, and then the snake like smacks him.
Yeah.
And he's like unconscious on the floor.
Yeah.
Like,
and you can just hear the snake that like.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this. Yeah.
And then like they play like a gramophone, like, you know, the old school record player.
Yeah.
They're playing it because someone brought one in their car. And they play the theme of the film, basically. And Jack looks at them like, he's like, you know, he has this like dramatic look, like, this is the end of an era, kind of. He's like, kind of like trembling, seeing these idiots run around. And then when we see that, then we see it in slow motion. We see them running around in slow motion, and he's just like, like, this is the end of an era. You know, like, it's like trying to be so poignant for something so ridiculous. But I love it. It's like cheesy, but it's funny, and I like it. And so he's looking at them run around in slow motion. Then all of a sudden, Jack gets hit by a car in the middle of that. But he's okay. He just
yeah, but it's the whole thing is still a complete disaster.
Yeah. So then Lady Faye comes out. She's like, "All you guys are fucking bitches." She comes out. She has a knife on her, and she just cuts the snake off of Nellie's neck, pulls the head out and the fangs out, and then she just sucks the poison out of her neck, you know.
And to bring her back into consciousness.
She keeps sucking it until Nellie wakes up, and she's super pale. And then, you know, Nellie sees her in front of her like, "Oh, you saved my life," and then she just starts making out with her, basically. So, and they become lovers at that point because she saved her life. You know, everything.
Yeah, even though sparks flew earlier.
Yeah, but this really iced it. You know what I mean? This sealed the deal. Her saving her life from the snake. No one else would do it except for her. You know, I guess maybe she just learned this in China, maybe, or something. Like, maybe she.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a survival skill that is usually taught, though. That if you're ever bitten by a snake, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess she was the only one brave enough to do it. You know. But this scene,
I guess, but it shows you that she was probably the only one who really
was paying attention,
or that too, or that she really truly cared about her.
Yeah. Maybe. So this scene, like I mentioned earlier in part 1, that to me Babylon is a lot like if Pulp Fiction was in the 20s. You know what I'm saying? Kind of has a similar vibe, a similar structure. You know. Just with, you know, it was an older time period, older technology and stuff. Mm-hmm. But it takes, you know, both take place in LA. And this scene here reminds me of the Uma Thurman heroin overdose scene in Pulp Fiction.
You can tell that it was definitely taken from that. And it did remind me a lot from it because when Nellie comes back into consciousness after Ladyface sucked the venom out of her.
Yeah.
It was like just like that sudden shock, like when Mia first wakes up after she, she overdosed.
Yeah, after she gets that stab by Travolta and she pops up like, oh god. It's the same sort of thing, and how pale they both are at that point too. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, oh my god, what the fuck? This is like that scene for me. Mm-hmm. So there you go. Once again, this is the Pulp Fiction of the 20s. And so after this great scene, we hear Singing in the Rain, and it's all these stars from that era. They're all dressed in these pink vinyl raincoats and this pink vinyl hat, which I think is pretty cool, actually. I like the outfits. And so I guess that's where this song originated from. Like, well, obviously the movie Singing in the Rain, we know that, but that came out later. Yeah. That came out when Manny sees it at the very end of the movie. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. But this song or whatever, I guess it was from this short like music video that they did back in 28 or 29 or whatever. Mm-hmm. All these stars, they brought all these stars together to do this random Singing in the Rain like music video wearing these pink outfits.
Well, they're raincoats and rain hats.
Yeah, yeah. And so we see Jack going there. He's like, I don't want to do this crap. He's like, what the hell? But then Irving's like, come on, there's Charlie Chaplin, there's Buster Keaton. Like, they're saying there's all these stars there. Come on, like, it would be great to have you. So he reluctantly goes into it, and he looks around and he sees his ex-wife there, Olga, and she sees him and she mouths like to him like when she sees him, and he's like,
well, I probably would have done the same.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm surprised, his ex-wife even tolerated him for as long as they did.
Yeah, exactly. So, and so Manny is there on the set too, and he's looking at what's going on, but then he also sees that, so there's a jazz band playing on the side too of this. Mm-hmm. They're playing the music for this Singing in the Rain thing. Yeah. And he's kind of looking over and is like, oh, okay. Like, and then when they're done with the take, he's like at the snack area. He's getting coffee, and Sydney goes and he gets coffee too. And Manny sees him and he's like, "Oh, well, what do you think of this?" And Sydney is like kind of shocked. He's kind of like you're asking me what I think, and he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "What do you think of this?" And he's like, "What I think, huh?" He's like, "Well." He's like, I think you have the cameras in the wrong direction. That's what he tells him. He just kind of walks away. And then Manny's like, Like, and he goes back to playing and he sees, and he's like, oh, yeah, like seeing these guys is more dynamic than seeing this crowd over there. So he's like, huh. So he gets like an idea, and he sees, he can see the talent of the band, which has a few black players, and he thinks, oh, like, let's make some like music shorts with these guys or whatever. And we cut to Sydney, and he's doing this like avant-garde jazz performance, and it's like they're doing jazz, fusion, crazy stuff, and there's like African, it's like kind of Picasso-esque, environment that they built on the set, and it looks really cool, and they finish the take, and it's like, and there's like African dancers there, and then we cut and we see Irving. He shakes Manny's hand, and he's like, good idea. Or whatever. He gives him, like, props for coming up with this music video for Sydney. And it's like, okay, that was a success. So, like, Manny is, like, on his way. He wants to be, a filmmaker and executive. He wants to be a big part of the movie industry, and this is kind of, like, his first step. He was Jack's assistant before, and now he's doing stuff. He's actually, like, producing stuff. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So he's in the right direction. So after that, he goes outside to smoke a cigarette, and we see some blonde girl walk by, and she like smiles at him. Uh-huh. She like checks him out, quote unquote, and and he's like, okay, like he's down with that. And then we see this guy from Red Hot Chili Peppers again walks up to him.
Oh, jeez.
Flea, not Kiddes, not Frusciante. Not the guy who looks like Will Ferrell.
Oh my gosh.
We see Flea, the bassist. He walks up to Manny, and he asks him if the Sydney Palmer shorts were his idea. The jazz shorts, and he's like, well, yeah. And so Manny's like, yeah. He's like, well, how would you like to be sound chief at Kinescope, which is his company? And he tells him, hey, like, the audience is changing, times are changing. We need Spanish language pictures. We need this. We need that. And Manny's like, oh, that sounds kind of good. But then he tells him, like, oh, we need to do something about Nellie Leroy. He's like, what? Like, he's like, you know her, right? Like, he's like, yeah, we need to change her image or whatever. Hold on a second. I guess this thing died.
Or we leave off then. I thought it was fully charged.
Okay. So we had to do some editing there. But,
yeah.
But we see, the jazz shorts are a hit. And so Manny goes outside to smoke a cigarette, and he sees some blonde chick walk by, and she kind of like checks him out. And he's like, oh, like, that looks good, or whatever, while he's smoking. And then we see this guy from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, here he comes again. Hello, Tom.
Tommy. Our cat.
Tommy.
Tom Hanks, our cat. So yeah, we see Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers, because he works for Kinescope Studios, and he asks Manny if the Sydney Palmer shorts were his idea, and he says yeah, and he's like, well, how would you like to be sound chief at Kinescope? And he's like, oh, that sounds kind of good. And he tells him that, he says the audience is changing, we need Spanish language pictures, that's where you come in. And he's like, oh, well, it seems like a pretty good job. And he says, and he tells him, oh, and we need you to do something about Nellie Leroy, because she's under them, and he's like, okay, and he's like, you know her, right? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, we need to clean up her act, like, this isn't the silent era anymore, and people are tired of her, Jersey girl shtick or whatever.
Yeah, like they think like she's kind of like she's pretty obscene, right?
Yeah.
That's
for the new times,
Yeah.
So we cut to Manny is presenting to these studio heads like the new plan, new direction for Nellie. He has like charts and stuff. He has like graphs kind of put up for her.
Yeah.
And then we see Manny on set, and they're doing like a Marie Antoinette type of film. We did the Sophia version not that long ago, but they're doing like a
what?
Silent era or right after the silent era version of Marie Antoinette. And I like this montage because like you could hear like a sped up version of the jazzy, the jazz theme, or what is it? Yeah, I like that part. And he's kind of running around, but you can tell he really likes what he's doing. He's like in the zone on the set. He's having a good time. He's calling shots. He's doing this, and Jack calls him. Actually, he's like, "Oh, like I heard you got a new job, Manny." He's like, "Good luck." Brad, Jack calls him, and he's like, "Good luck, you deserve it." And he's like, "Well, thanks, Jack." And then someone calls him Manuel on the set, but then he's like, "Oh, call me Manny."
Yeah.
I don't know because it seems like he was trying to like, be less Hispanic by saying that or something.
I think he's just trying to fit in because he can already sense that. Yeah, like he's being treated as an inferior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that's why he says someone calls him Manuel, and he's like, calling man. And then we see Sydney, the jazz guy. He gets a new big house and a nice car from Mr. Wallach, and he's like, damn, he's like living the dream basically. And so the studio doesn't like that Nellie is with Faye Zhu.
Like, it's just scandalous.
Yeah, their lesbian relationship is too scandalous, and it won't help them with the Hearst crowd, because that's where Hollywood is starting to get a lot of money from. They're getting a lot of money from these like conservative donors and conservative philanthropists and stuff like that. And but they want to see things that are conservative. You know what I mean? So Manny, we see Manny. He basically confronts Fei Zhu like in some dark, like some dark studio or something, and he tells her to stay away from Nellie. Like he basically like bans her from seeing her. And like there's this like touch of green lighting in that studio too when he's telling her that, and it's cool. It's like almost Wong Kar-wai-ish, the little green
I could kind of sense that in the lighting.
Yeah. Or it's Varsity Blues-ish.
Well, I mean, believe it or not, I haven't really sat down to watch Varsity Blues, so...
Oh, you didn't see it when me and Byron were watching it the other time?
I think I just walked by, but I didn't really sit down and watch
it. It's pretty damn funny.
Okay, I guess, but I don't know.
It's like American Pie with football. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I don't know if I could really sit down and watch it.
No, but I'm joking. But the reason I mentioned it was or Varsity Blues is for some reason there's a random ass shot in Varsity Blues where he's at like a 7-Eleven and it looks like straight up Wong Kar-wai shot. You know what I mean? Like it's just James Van Der Beek. He's like running into 7-Eleven, but it has this Wong Kar-wai lighting for some damn reason.
It's very ironic for that type of.
Yeah, it was like all of a sudden they wanted to be artsy for a second.
Weird.
So yeah. So that's pretty sad that Manny, bans their relationship basically. And then Irving.
But that just shows you that he ultimately cared what the industry was going for rather than what made her happy. Really.
Yeah, he was trying to help save her career, but he was like trying to propel his own career too,
Well, yeah, but that shows you that in a way he was being selfish.
Yeah, exactly. So then Irving gets a note during a meeting and calls Jack, and he calls Jack at home. Jack is at home with his wife, doing scenes, like working on the scene. And he gets the phone and he hears that it's Irving, and he said, "Hey, Jack." It's like George shot and killed himself.
Oof.
He's like, "I'm sorry," or whatever, and then he kind of hangs up and he walks out kind of all, he's shook, and his wife sees him like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And he doesn't really say anything, and he said he was the first one who said I had talent. And she's like, "Who? Like, what?" And he kind of just lashes out at her at that point. He's like, it's not a low art. He's like, what I do means something to millions of people. He's like, you, because she does theater,
Yeah.
So he's like, he's like, 10,000 people see it, it's a hit. He's like, if 10,000 people see what I do, it's a flop. It's a fucking flop. Like he tells her that, and she's just like, "What are you talking about?" Like it's pretty good acting here. Like her teariness, Yet like her, you can see her eyes are watery, but she's not full on crying. You know what I mean? Like she's just like really surprised by what he's saying. But yeah, he really lashes out at her. And she doesn't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. It's kind of like she just doesn't know what to make of it.
Yeah.
I mean, even though he's yelling at her.
Yeah, exactly. And so the studio and Jack are watching his new movie with sound. And they're telling him it's good, but he has his doubts. He's like, I don't know if this is good. And then... So they go to this party or whatever, like with all these investors and stuff. And Nellie is there, and she's presented by Jean Smart, the Jean Smart character, and by Manny to a group of investors at the party. And she's trying to hide her accent, like her Jersey girl accent, because it's all these like old conservative white people, and they eat hors d'oeuvres and stuff like that, and other weird foods and stuff like that at the party.
Yeah, well, you can see that it's just all a very elitist crowd.
Yeah, and Sydney is there too, and it's funny because he walks in through the door and he looks around and he's like, "All right," he's like he just sees all these white people and he's like, "Okay, I just have to get through this," And when he sits down, it's one of the people talking to him is Taylor Nichols from Whit Stillman's films. He's the nerdy guy from Whit Stillman's films, the guy with the glasses.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I love that guy.
I think he's really good actually.
Yeah, he's great. He's done over 100 films.
That's a more extensive career than I thought.
Yeah, and it all started with Metropolitan. That was his first shit. So you got to give it up to Whit Stillman.
Yeah, even though I already told you what I really think of his movies, I mean, into a similar way as what I think of some of Damian Chazelle's content, but which we can get into more later. And if you guys are really curious, I'm not going to get into details here, but you can always reach out and maybe I'll make a statement on it sometime.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about it eventually. But yeah, like you can see Taylor Nichols is like picking his brain here. Like all the people around him are like picking his brain because it's like, oh, we get to talk to a black person. Let's see how they, how they see the world, And yeah, you can see that at least Taylor Nichols, he's like this white liberal dude trying to like, be friendly, but Sydney is like weirded out by it, And
which I don't blame him for being weirded out by it.
Yeah. And then we see Manny now has this white blonde girlfriend, and now and someone asks him like, "Oh, what part of Mexico are you from?" And he says, "I'm from Madrid, Spain." That's what he says. Like it's like he's trying to seem more elevated, right? He's trying to be more European,
Yeah, well, I mean, he is trying to fit in.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just interesting how Chazelle put that in, like hiding his background and stuff like that. Here's Tom again, showing his butthole.
Yeah, okay. Let's censor that as much as we can. As much as he permits it, really. Okay, he's walking away.
Butthole surfers.
Thank you.
Sorry. Anyway, so yeah, Manny, he's kind of trying to be snobby now. And Jack is at the party with his wife, and they're all smiles. And he says they're working on their marriage, after that fight that they had.
Oh,
where, his best friend basically killed himself, So I guess you can't be too hard on him.
No.
And Nellie is complaining to Manny in the other room, and he tells her to put up with it for now, and she's like, fine. And he's like, what's your name? And she's like, Nellie Leroy. And he's like, no, in French. And she's like, that is French, or whatever. And they both kind of laugh. And you can tell that they improvise that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But he did a good job. I think he did a good job with a lot of improvisation.
Yeah, of course.
And the fact that he did a lot of it in Spanish, too, I think was perfect.
Well, yeah, it definitely shows.
Just, you really... because in other movies, at least for maybe in other time, like if this was in the 90s, this guy wouldn't even be Mexican. Like he'd probably be played by like Antonio Banderas or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which
and in that case, he is Spanish.
Yeah, exactly. But like he wouldn't have that same sort of essence. You know what I mean? Of course not. Like I love Antonio Banderas. He's a great actor, but. If I want someone who can improvise as a Mexican, you need a Mexican to do that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because only they would really get it, And they keep asking Jack how Europe was and how he's holding up, and Jack feels like something is wrong. He's like, I guess my new movie must be shit. Because
what did that have to do with it?
Well, just because everyone's like checking in on him and then he just ends up, he's like, will someone kindly tell me what the fuck is going on? Just kind of funny. And then we see Jean Smart there still with Nellie, and her hat is funny. It looks like she's the new Pope or something like that. And they ask Nellie to tell a joke, and she kind of doesn't want to, but then she's like, okay, like I'll tell you a joke, and she tells them the joke about the rabbit and the bear, and I guess how the bear wipes his ass with the rabbit or whatever. Um, so at that point, she just kind of breaks down and attacks the crowd, like, she points fingers at them. She eats the food with her hands, and
Yeah, like but she just grabs everything like she's just like she's just some feral person.
Yeah, she just goes wild. And she fucks up her dress, and she tells them that she's
like her makeup is ruined. Well, hair and makeup, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm just gonna go home and stick some coke up my pussy. That's what she says. And she storms out.
But
then
on her way out,
yeah,
she feels herself regurgitating.
Yeah.
If I pronounce that
regurgitating.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I had a feeling I didn't pronounce that correctly. Which, by the way, if most of you can't tell, English is not my first language, so I still occasionally struggle with some words.
Yeah, you almost got it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we hear like her stomach like rumble a bit, and she's like, "Oh shit!" And then she feels that she has to throw up. So
she runs back inside the house,
and she throws up all over the floor, and all over the floor.
Yeah,
big time. And this reminds me of when I was at my friend's house when I was like 12, and I threw up all over his floor.
Whoa. Okay, TMI. But then
I had a shitload of Snickers.
Okay, so
she throws them all over the floor, and then one of the rich guys comes up to her like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
It's like you just threw up all over my carpet, and she just projectile vomits towards his face
and into his mouth.
Yeah,
it's gross, disgusting. Once again, probably why people hated it. And so much for trying to clean up her image. Yeah, and Manny just sees this and he's just like, "Oh my god!"
And disbelief.
Yeah, and then she does this like bow to the crowd, and then leaves the house after that. And Manny's very disappointed. I feel like the bowing to the crowd kind of overdid it in a way. It was like kind of cheesy when she did that, but I guess I understand. Yeah, so that basically ruined her comeback that she was planning on having. And Jack goes to a theater, he wants to see the reaction that his movie is getting. And he kind of like leans in on the side with his like mustache and his like dark hair. He looks totally different than how he usually looks, honestly. He walks in and he hears his dialogue, and he's like with the actress in the scene, and he's like, "I love you. I love you, I love you, I love you." And then the crowd, he can hear the crowd start to laugh. They're like, "I love you, I love you." And he's like, he listens, and he's like, he can see his heart like crack when he hears that. You know what I mean? He's like, fuck. He's like, I suck. You know what I mean? Like, people making fun of me. Like, it's pretty sad, actually.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah, he feels like shit. I've never seen Brad Pitt look so pathetic in anything. You know what I mean? Like, he usually always looks cool, and he's the man. You know what I'm saying? This is the kind of the first time I've ever seen him look that sad and pathetic. You know what I mean?
In the movie, yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen him like that. And I think that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to take this cool, iconic actor and, make him not look that way.
Yeah.
And so the next scene is Jack. He's he's being interviewed by Gene Smart's character, and he has sunglasses, and I like his blue cardigan that he has. And I like the jump cuts here. This is very Godard-ish. Like the jump cuts of the interview. They make it seem like a real interview, with these jump cuts. And she asks him like, "Oh, like, would you want to go to theater to try to work on your, whoa, crap."
Okay, we'll take a pause right there.
Yeah.
Or Where is he?
He's not running.
But why do you go like
what?
like that? But like, you need to be fast, and you need to, you need to, like, do you see what I'm trying to say? You need to be aggressive enough that it sparks like something in them, like to stop doing that.
Okay.
And you're gonna have to edit all that out.
Yeah. That's...
Okay. And also, we need to talk about the vomit thing because that was pretty TMI.
Oh, what?
Your story?
Well, I thought that would be fun.
No, it's not. It's gross.
Okay. So yeah, so Jack is interviewed by her, and she asks him like if he'll, want to do theater to try to learn how to do sound film, because he was used to doing silent film, and he says, "No, I will master the talking film on film." That's what he tells her. And she asks him, "Do you miss the silence?" And he says, "No, you shouldn't stand in the way of progress."
Huh.
And she's like, "Oh, thank you, Jack. You're still the kid I met 20 years ago."
Huh.
That's what she tells him. And Sydney is doing another film, and Manny is like overseeing it. And some guy tells him that the band looks racially mixed or whatever, and I guess that will hurt the South. It would like hurt sales in the South of the film.
Whatever that means.
Yeah. So, and he's saying that Wallach might pull the plug on the film because of that or whatever. So, he's like, "Oh, do something about it. Here's some shoe polish or something like that."
Yeah. Well, this is where the racism comes into play, which
yeah,
was completely unnecessary for them to do that.
Well, I mean, I think they wanted to be realistic.
I know that they're being realistic and they're trying to show what happened at the time, but it's, and hopefully that's what they're trying to convey to show what's still going on nowadays.
Yeah. So like we see Manny give Sydney that shoe polish or something, and he tells him, and Sydney's like, "What's this for?" And he's like, "Oh, put it on your face to look darker." And Sydney thinks it's ridiculous. Like he's like, "Oh, I'm already black. Like what the hell?"
Yeah, it is ridiculous.
He's saying like, "Yeah, well, the lighting is making you look whiter or whatever," and he's like, "So we need this. We need you to put this on to look black." And he like Sydney, he does think it's ridiculous, and he kind of doesn't know what to make of it. But then Manny tells him like, "Hey, like you're an actor now, Sydney. Actors change their appearances for roles. It's normal." And he's like, he's like, "Okay." So Manny, I guess, kind of convinces him to do it. He kind of guilts him into it because he says, "Oh, like if you don't do this, no one will get paid." And he's kind of like, "Shut up." He's kind of like, he feels like he's forced into it at that point, So Sydney does put on the makeup, and and then Jack goes to the studio trying to find Irving around, but he's not there. But then he sees the magazine. He sees the interview that he did with Jean Smart, Eleanor St. John.
Yeah.
And then we so these two scenes are like juxtaposed, and then we see Sydney. He's playing with the band, and he has the black face. Like he put on the makeup, and even when he's playing, it just feels like his dignity was stripped away.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean? You can feel it from him, and he's conveying it. Like you're saying, I think people find this controversial, just the fact that they have this segment in it, but I think it's realistic, and I think it's worth showing it.
Well, I mean, it's trying to show you that,
how it was,
it was, and how in a way it's still going on.
And and it's like he walks away from the money after that. Like, I like that. I like that he was just like, I'm not gonna just do this for the money. He's like, I don't care.
No, he made the right decision.
Yeah, he walks away from it. Manny is told by a production assistant that they can't find Nellie, that she's gone, and he's like, oh, okay, well, I don't know, like, I don't know where she's at, know. And then we see Sydney walk out of the set, and the gate security guy sees him, and that guy is also black too. The security guy, he sees him, and he gives him like his lanyard that he has or whatever. He's like, oh, you're gonna need that to come back. And he tells him, I'm not coming back. And then just cuts, like, right there. I love how quickly it cuts right there,
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't let it... Because if it didn't cut any sooner, it would have been weird. So the fact that it cuts right there is perfect.
That was good.
Yeah. And then Jack is confronting Eleanor about the article. Like, he goes to her office. And she knows that he's really upset that his movie tanked, and that's what he's really pissed off. He's not pissed off about her article per se, but then she tells him like, "Oh, like your career's over," like that's what she tells him point blank, and he's like, "Fuck," like, But she tells him that, "Oh, but don't worry, like because you were a movie star, you'll live forever." She says you shouldn't feel bad. He's like, and she says there'll be 100 more Jack Conrads. And your time today is through, but you'll spend eternity with angels and ghosts. And she basically tells him that he at least did something that'll live on. You know what I mean? Like his prime is over. You know what I mean? But at least he's done some work that will live on. And she says some great shit here, which I encourage you to watch it. If you haven't seen it, watch it, and if you've seen it already, watch it again. And
if you haven't seen it, you just got a bunch of spoilers already.
yeah. But yeah, you should really watch. And this scene, like the things she says in this, are great. I love what she says, what she tells him, and then after she's done telling him all this, he walks up. He just walks up and walks away from her, and like right when he reaches the door, he mumbles. He's like, "Thank you for that," and he walks out. he just tells her that like he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to give her all the credit, but he wants to at least, acknowledge her for saying that. Like she didn't have to point out how cool it is that he's done all this stuff, but the fact that she did point it out to him, it made him feel better. He's like, yeah, I might be done, but at least I did something. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, my run might be over, but at least I got to do it. You know what I mean? Like, that's more than I could say about most people, And that's pretty much where the second act ends. Mm-hmm. And then, we have an amazing third act after that. But we'll get into that next time on part 3 of Babylon Briterion Bollection podcast. We'll see you next time on part 3.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Peace. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, how's it going?
Hello, look, we have a guest here who will probably be coming back and forth and will be pretty buggy at times, but he's very lovable. His name is Tom Hanks.
Yeah, not the actor, but our cat, Tom Hanks. If you're watching this, you can see him. We're doing our scenes from a marriage setup again, but we're not talking about scenes from a marriage. We're doing part 3 of Babylon. So the third act, and we're gonna wrap it up. Hopefully it was the last episode of Babylon. Here.
It should be, because I don't want to have to make it too long of a run.
Right.
And it looks like we are about 2/3 of the way
through. Yeah, we are. So where we left off, it was when Jack was talking to Eleanor St. John, and she basically tells him his career is over, but because he was a movie star, he'll live forever in that sense, And then he walks away and mumbles, "Thanks for that." Like he says that right when he walks out. So the start of the third act is we fade up from black, and we see a house, and then we hear a door pounding. We hear the door pounding of the house, and we see Manny walk downstairs, and he opens the door, and Nellie is at the door saying she fucked up. She owes gambling debts, 85 grand at the McKay casino.
And that was a lot of money at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I actually don't think I ever got the calculation of how much money that would be today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you do that. Is there some, like, currency exchange calculator or something? I mean, I'm sure, but I mean, it's different from, like, Googling pesos to dollars or something. Like,
because this year was, what was
1930, 31.
Okay, so let's just say 1930 to today. Okay. Yeah. Also, if we didn't introduce ourselves, this is Briterion Bollection. My name is Aileen, and this is my husband,
Kevin.
And he is actually the main host. I just decided to steal his thunder.
Yeah. Well, you've done it. This isn't your first time here, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we forgot to introduce ourselves, but that's okay. Because Tom distracted us. And he's still distracting us.
Yes. He will for sure be distracting us throughout the rest of this coverage. And I actually did find it. It says $85,000 in 1930 is equivalent in purchasing power to about $1,636,199.10 today. An increase of $1,551,199.10 over 95 years.
Wow. Yeah, that's a shitload of money.
It is, definitely. So, you definitely don't want to get in that kind of debt.
No, you don't. So, yeah, she tells him if she doesn't have the money by the end of the week, they're gonna pour acid in her pussy. That's what they said. She said, they said.
Whoa. TMI.
Yeah. And, Manny is pissed. He starts yelling at her in Spanish.
Yes.
And I like that he improvised that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that was Diego Calva's improvisation.
Yeah.
But he did very good of showing how upset Manny was at Nellie.
Yeah, and I think Chazelle probably told him, like, oh, you know, go with the scene, argue with her, do it in Spanish if you have to, you know what I'm saying? He probably, you know, encouraged that, and he did a good job with it. And then she starts crying, and then there's a part where he's like, you fucked my life!
Well, he said, me hiciste mierda la noche, which means you turned my night into shit.
Yeah.
She tries to hug him, and so she ends up grabbing his leg to try to. She's pleading with him. He's like, Manny, please. And he's like, no me putas toques, which means don't fucking touch me. He's very angry for sure.
Yeah. He's like, you fucked my life. He says that. But then she keeps crying, and then he kind of feels bad for her. So he says he'll help her out, and he gets on his knees and hugs her. And this scene actually kind of reminds me of Sideways, you know, the Alexander Payne wine film.
Yes.
This reminds me of the part when Jack, Thomas Hayden Church's character, bursts in after he was like banging the waitress at the like chubby waitress that they met at the restaurant. And
his character was just
he was a wreck. He was a train wreck. Yeah,
for sure.
Love that movie, by the way. Hopefully we can talk about it sometime.
We have to. It's not hopefully we can. It's we have to.
We'll talk about it. When he comes in, he bursts in and wakes up Miles in the middle of the night, and he's crying, and and Miles is looking at him like, damn, like, this is so pathetic, like, like, I have to help his ass, you know. I get that same sort of look from Diego to Margot Robbie here. Well, yeah. And then we cut to Jack Conrad, Brad Pitt's character, is at home by the fire, and his phone is ringing, and he answers it, and it's Irving Thalberg, played by your favorite actor, Max Minghella.
I want to kill that guy. Not literally, but he drives me crazy with his characters. Well, with the characters that he portrays in a lot of his content.
Right, and so Irving tells Jack, "Oh, I got a movie for you." He's all excited, and Jack just asks him, like, "It's a piece of shit, isn't it?" And I'd be bailing you out, right? And he's like, "Come on, just be honest with me." He's like, "All I want is a little honesty." He's like, "Yeah, it's a piece of shit." He's like, "Yeah, you'd be bailing me out." He has to say exactly what he says, and he's like, "All right, I'll do it. I'll be there. I'll see you on Monday, whatever." Like, he agrees to it, as long as he hears the truth from him, And we cut to him on the set of a beach in the next scene, and it's like he's talking to the kid about his first time acting in a movie, and Jack looks around at everyone on the set, and it's like it hits him, like, being on the set this time, it hits different to him, like he feels the sadness now. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not like how it was before. When he was the star, he was the shit. He's just like, the cameo name talent. Yeah, he's like, I think I need to leave this shit. Like, I think he makes up in his mind, like, this is my last hurrah.
Well, at least he acknowledged it.
Well, yeah. I don't know if he had to be so drastic about it, as we'll see. And then we see Nellie and Manny back at his house, and Nellie is dancing to the jazz, and it's that. And she's like jumping around, she's like doing coke or something, and Manny tells her he's figuring out how to get the money. And so the drug dealer guy from earlier, the on-set drug dealer guy who gives her the peanut with like the pills in it, he calls Manny and tells him he has the money. And he's like, "Oh, well, how'd you get the money?" And he's like, "Oh, I got a guy." And he's like, "We'll see him on Friday." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And he asks how he got the money, and he's like, "I have my ways,"
Yeah.
And you're like, "Okay, that's pretty fast to come up with that much money," And so when you're watching it, you're like anticipating, like, "How did he get this money?" You know what I mean? Like, that quickly. And so they meet up, and they're parked outside McKay's house. And Manny's like, "Oh, I'm not used to these kind of people." And the drug dealer's the Count, I guess is his name. He's like, "Oh, well, they're no worse than movie people." That's what he tells him. Which that's kind of scary, actually. Like, if you're trying to get into the entertainment industry, and mafia dudes are about the same.
That's not a good combination.
No. So they go to the mansion. They get inside Jim McKay's mansion, and his bodyguard is played by Ethan Suplee of American History X and Boy Meets World fame. He's not as big as he was back then. He lost a lot of weight, and he's like his henchman, his bouncer guy, and he has a gun. He's strapped up, and he keeps doing that bro spit that you hate. I know you fucking hate that. It is pretty damn annoying.
Honestly, I just don't understand why a lot of guys have the habit of spitting. Yeah. It's disgusting.
Like, you can
especially when they do that hawking sound. It's just.
That's why he keeps doing it.
It's honestly, it's a complete turnoff. I don't know how other people can't even tolerate it. I just can't. Cringe doesn't even begin to cover it as a description.
Yeah, I mean, I hate it too, but maybe that's why if he did that for the character, then that's pretty good acting. If he was like, "Oh, I want to play an asshole," and so if he came up with that trait, that's pretty good acting, actually.
Yeah, I bought it.
Yeah. So they kind of want to drop off the money, with Ethan Suplee. But then he says, "Oh, Jim's inviting you for a drink," and they're like, and the Count is like, "Okay, like sounds good," and then Manny looks at him like, "What the fuck?" Like he's like, "I just want to get the fuck out of here," but the Count's like, "Oh, come on, it's one drink, come on," like what? Man, he just wanted to drop the money and get up. So they walk up, and I like how they set this up. They set it up with like mystery, like because you keep hearing this name McKay throughout the movie. You're like Jim McKay, and then they walk in and you see a guy sitting there, but his back is turned to the camera, so you're kind of like, who is this guy? You know what I mean? You're like, who plays this guy? And they walk in to sit down, and then we have this reveal, and so Jim McKay is played by
Tobey Maguire.
Yep, Spider-Man himself, the original Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, let us know if you're actually fans of those Spider-Man movies. Because
well, I don't think Kirsten Dunst was a big fan of them. And she was in them.
Yeah, well, I think ultimately she realizes they weren't the best. But for those who are actually Spider-Man fans, did you really like them?
I didn't love them, honestly.
Yeah, I didn't think they were that great.
Yeah. Even though I like Tobey Maguire.
Especially the third one, I feel that it was more watered down and there was just more drama and cheesiness to it than anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably would have been better if James Cameron actually, because James Cameron wanted to do Spider-Man initially.
I would not have handed it to him, honestly.
You think he would have did a worse job than the ones that came out?
Maybe.
Because he wanted to do it with Leo. Because I heard Titanic,
that. Yeah, but one thing is, you were barely able to make Titanic decent. Just
much less Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Well, and then he gave it to his friend Toby. Like he didn't end up doing it, so he's like, "Okay, Toby can do it." So Toby ended up doing it, and he became, he was already somewhat of a star, but he got even bigger after that.
Yeah, well, I already told you who my favorite Spider-Man is anyway.
Oh, Tom Holland?
Yes, he is my favorite. At least, yeah, he portrays my favorite Spider-Man role.
Yeah. And it's funny because Tom Holland, not the same Tom Holland, but some guy named Tom Holland also directed Thinner, the movie me and Chris talked about, the Stephen King.
Okay, what does that have anything to do with it, other than they share the same name?
It's just funny that they have the same name.
It's weird.
So anyways, so Jim McKay is played by Tobey Maguire, and he's very eccentric, to say the least.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
And so Toby was also a producer on this film, and I think time will show that Toby was the man for producing this. It didn't do very well in the theaters. I think people lost a lot of money on this, but I think over time people will be like, damn, Tobey Maguire is a genius for producing this shit.
Yeah.
And I know Diego Calva was very excited to meet Toby. I think he was on Jimmy Kimmel, and Jimmy Kimmel was like, "Oh, there's a lot of stars on this movie. Like, who are you most excited to meet?" And he was like, "Tobey Maguire." Tobey Maguire. And he was like, "I really wanted to meet Tobey Maguire." So that's kind of funny. I guess he was a big Spider-Man fan. That's why he wanted to meet him. And then so Jim McKay, he's like, "Oh, I heard you guys work in the movies, huh?" And he's like, "Oh, I have a lot of good movie ideas." He's like, "Let me tell them to you." And then Manny's like kind of looking around like, "I just want to get the hell out of here." And he's like, there's I have one idea where there's a 10-year-old kid who's a prodigy, but he's really a 50-year-old midget. That's what he says. There's a lot of un-PC talk that he says, but
well, this
was the 20s.
Or the early 1930s.
Yeah.
Which is, it still sounds weird, even if it's a period piece. But just hearing it in almost mid-2020s, it's just, no.
Yeah. And then Toby walks away to get the drinks, and the guy, so like the Count tells Manny about the money And Manny is confused because Manny was like, okay, like, how'd you get the money? And he's like, oh, from the prop guy. And then he's like, from the prop guy? And he's like, yeah. He's like, it's the money that he makes or whatever. And then he's like, you mean his income? And he's like, no.
It's supposed to be counterfeit money.
He's like, it's the money that he makes. And he's like, what? And then he finally gets it. He's like, what the fuck? He's like freaking out, like, oh shit.
Yes. Yeah. It took him a while for it to click.
Like, he could have used that Scott Pilgrim, like, no clue, and then finally gets it.
Which, for those who haven't seen Scott Pilgrim, there is a meter that he uses when he has to realize how Romana got involved with one of her exes. I don't want to spoil it too much, just watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of our people have seen.
Yeah, but what if someone is just getting into it? So, I don't want to just assume that everyone has watched Scott Pilgrim.
If you haven't seen Scott Pilgrim, you're living under a rock, and you need to see it. I saw that in the theater when it came out, 2010. I saw it like twice, I think.
I saw it when they had a special night for it.
Yeah, we went to a screening.
Yeah, and I was sick. Yeah. I was sick as a dog, but I told myself, I can't miss this. This is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah. So you went to a midnight screening?
Yes, it was a midnight screening. Sick and going to a midnight screening? I don't know how I even survived
that. I'm surprised. Because you fall asleep during matinees.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Somehow
lately, I haven't really been falling asleep at the movies, no matter how tired I am. I think it just gets to the point where I've been able to just stay up.
I think you've been having more coffee than you used to, too, probably.
Yeah, I didn't used to drink that much coffee before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
So Manny's freaking out because he just realized that it's fake money.
Well, like I said, counterfeit, right?
Yeah. It's counterfeit money. It's prop money. You know, it looks pretty real though.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that it's fake, really.
Jim McKay comes back and he says another idea is Wyatt Earp, because he was saying, "Oh, have you heard of Wyatt Earp?" Which Wyatt Earp is famous now, but I guess at the time he wasn't that famous, you know, but there's been movies done on Wyatt Earp, like Kevin Costner did a movie on him. So the fact that he brings him up, but this is like at the time, because he says, oh, have you heard of Wyatt Earp? He died a few years ago. He's like, but apparently he's a hero of the West and he couldn't count. He's like, but I was just thinking of making a full-fledged R word. That's what he said.
Yeah, R word referring to his intellectual abilities. Yeah,
so like I said, a lot of un-PC stuff from McKay here. And they're kind of like, oh, that's a great idea. You know, but man, he's like, that's great. Maybe we can talk another time. You know, and then he's like, oh, I have another idea. The world's most fearless warrior. And he's like, and I know just the guy. He's like, I would like to introduce you to him. Man, he's like, yeah, I'll send the studio. And McKay's like, no, we need to go now. He's like, we need to go right now. It's like, we can just drive over the hill. And Manny's like, and so he kind of forces them to go. And so we cut to these headlights on the road. It kind of looks like Lost Highway, David Lynch. The headlights on the dark ass road. It looks like that, you know, because this is LA in the 30s, and it's basically a desert. You know, there's like no light, not much lighting. You know, not much street lights. And so they get there to the location, and McKay tells them, "Oh, this is LA's last real party. You know, everything is lame except for this." And it's funny that he's saying this so long ago. You know what I mean? Like it was so long ago, and already was lame. So they start walking in to this crazy building, cave, if you will, and right when they're about to walk in, McKay says, "Welcome to the asshole of Los Angeles." I thought that was Dodger Stadium.
Well, they turned it into such, which actually, if you don't know the history of how Dodger Stadium got developed, It was in a really horrible way.
Yeah, Google that.
Yeah.
Wikipedia that.
Or just look at the Battle of Chavez Ravine. It's really bad what they did to those people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just can't believe that a lot of people go watch Dodger games and just pretend that nothing ever happened. Because a lot of those people know what happened, they just don't care.
You're right, yeah.
And yeah, so just, and look at what the Dodgers have been doing beyond that too. So just no.
Yeah. So they walk in to this place and it's like pitch fucking black. And we hear like theremin music and you know, that really sets it up like it's a real avant-garde scene. Yeah, like these guys are doing some pretty hipster shit, you know, for the 20s, 30s, you know. And so we walk in and we see like a fight club sort of thing right when they walk in. And you know, this is kind of where it reminds you of Pulp Fiction a bit too. They go down to the next level and it's like some freaky S&M dungeon with like some deformed people and there's like Shirley Temple music, which like makes it even creepier than if it was like theremin music, you know. Like
it really does,
yeah,
honestly.
Yeah, that makes it even creepier than the science fiction music they're playing upstairs. And then they go down to the next level, and McKay's like, after you. And so, like, Manny and the Count walk in, and there's this alligator just comes out of nowhere, just snaps, and it scares the shit out of Manny. He's like, oh, oh. And McKay's like, oh. He just laughs at him.
I don't even think that's funny.
He just wanted to scare his ass, you know?
Yeah.
And just see the look on his face.
But still, is that even necessary?
Well, we're talking about McKay here. He's not the most moral guy in the world. So they go in and it's kind of scary. You know, you don't know what the fuck you're gonna see as you get lower in here. Like this reminds you of when in Pulp Fiction when Bruce Willis and Ving Rhames stumble. They're fighting and then they stumble into the pawn shop, which is owned by these redneck guys there, and the you know the redneck owner guy, he comes out with a shotgun on both of them, and he's like, okay, like, get in. And he calls some guy to come, and next thing we know, they're tied up, and, you know, they're like, who's gonna go first? And they choose Ving Rhames first, and Bruce Willis is outside trying to, like, figure out how to get the hell out of there. And he, you know, he's tied up, but he breaks his ties, and he kills the gimp guy, I guess, who's tied up there. And then he's about to just leave. He's going to leave Ving Rhames. You can hear Ving Rhames like moaning in the background. You don't know what the hell's going on. At least I didn't know what the hell, when I saw it, I didn't know what the hell was going on. And Bruce Willis is about to leave him there. But then he has a second thought. He's like, no, I feel like I need to help this guy. You know? So he goes back and he's like, what kind of weapon can I get? You know, and he looks around. He's like, okay, like, should I get a bat? No, that's not good enough. Should I get, you know, this crowbar? Is like, no, that's not good enough. And then he looks up, and then you don't see what he's looking at, but then it zooms up, and you see it's a sword. It's a samurai sword. Yeah. He's like, okay, that's what I'm gonna get. So he grabs that, and then you see him, and you hear this moaning. He goes deeper into the basement, and you know, you see the door closed, and he like pushes it open slowly, and you don't know what you're gonna see. It reminds you a lot of this scene. Like he pushes it open slowly, and then you find when the door finally opens, you see that they're raping Ving Rhames or whatever, and you're like, shit, like that's crazy. So it reminds you a lot of this scene because it's like you keep going deeper, and you don't know what the hell you're gonna see, and it's kind of scary. You're like, what the hell am I gonna see here? Yeah. But you know, that's the genius of Tarantino too, choosing the sequencing of that whole scene, and then the music in that scene too. With na 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 na, and the fact that he chose a sword, he did that because I guess he liked that Jodorowsky in Santa Sangre. He had the kid with a random samurai sword near the end in this scene, and I guess Tarantino told Jodorowsky like, "Oh, I love how he has the samurai sword." Like it just came out of nowhere, like never wasn't expecting it at all. So he's like, "That's why I wanted to put this samurai sword in Pulp Fiction." I heard Jodorowsky say that. So this scene kind of, that's another parallel with Pulp Fiction. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So they go deeper, and then they walk in. And he's like, look at this guy, and they see this big buff ass dude, and he's wearing a mask, and we see that he eats like live rats. He just fucks rats out, and he just eats them.
That's disgusting.
Yeah. And they're like, yes. McKay's like, yes. Like, eat another rat. like, he's like, this guy will do anything for cash. He's like really into it. And it's funny. I have a feeling that guy wasn't gonna wear a mask initially, but then the guy who was actually doing it was like, "Oh, I should wear a mask because I don't want people to think I'm some freak when they see me." I think that was like after the fact. And so yeah, he wears this mask, but it actually adds to the creepiness of it, the fact that he wears a mask. You know what I mean? So in a way, it was a nice touch. And then McKay is like, "Oh, give me another 20," and he gets one out of the bag and he crumples it up. And he's like, more. He's like, eat another rat. And then there's a callback to the beginning because he tells Manny, he's like, this guy's perfect for the movies. He's like, you either are a star or you aren't. That's what he says. And that's a callback to the beginning because Nellie says that at the beginning.
Yeah.
She says, you either are a star or you aren't. So it's a nice little bookend here. And then McKay gets another 20 out, and then they're in this cave, so it's like kind of wet. And he, like, a drop of water falls on the 20, and he's like, wait, what? And he looks at it, and like it starts to bleed, the ink starts to bleed.
So it's that starts giving it away.
Yeah, and he's like, wait, what? And then he's like, it's fake, and like Ethan Suplee's like, whoa, what the fuck? And he's like, we were gonna make movies together, and then Manny was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. He's like kind of mumbling out of it, and then so Ethan Suplee's character is Wilson. So Wilson grabs his gun, but then Manny grabs an axe like off the wall that was like hanging as decoration, but I guess it's a real axe, and he just buries it in Wilson's neck. Just like, oh, it's like Kurosawa style. You see the blood like start pouring out or whatever. Yeah. And McKay sees that, and he's like, what the fuck? So he says it. It's hilarious. And then everyone in there is like, like they see this whole thing, and they're all about to descend on Manny and the Count. And then all of a sudden, everybody has fucking guns. But he has this axe, kind of, defending himself. And then he runs away, and they're all chasing after him with the guns, kind of shooting randomly. But then he uses the axe to let the alligator go. So the alligator kind of like scares the guys with the guns, and then they're able to run off, but you still hear like the bullets like go off the cave and stuff like that. Fucking love that. That's so good.
It's really scary to watch, actually. Even though it's not really happening. But
that's the movies. It's the magic of movies.
But then you're really scared for Manny's fate right there.
Yeah. It's like, you die, but you're not really dead. Yeah. And they're running out, and I love how it just cuts in the middle of that. Like you see them run out, but it just cuts, and I love that. The suspense of that. And then we cut to Jack is at some hotel, and he has a new girlfriend, and he bumps into Lady Fei Zhu, and she tells him she's going to Paris, and he's like, yeah, he's like, you'll do great there. And Jack just seems depressed, in this scene. He's on his last legs, and I think Lady Fei can see that, and she asks if he's okay, and he said he doesn't say, he doesn't answer her question. He says it was the most magical place in the world, wasn't it? And she's like, it was. Like, and he says he's tired. He's like, I'm tired, and he's like, it's okay. I've been the luckiest bastard in the world. And it's funny, like, he gets so depressing that she's like, okay, I gotta go. Like, she doesn't want him to kill her vibe or whatever.
I definitely don't blame her.
Yeah. Like, so he's so sad, but she's not in the mood to help him. She's kind of like, okay, I gotta go. Like, nice seeing you, she doesn't want to hear any more this depressed bastard. So, but she walks away, but she looks back at him worried. There's like a cut of her looking back at him like, damn, I hope he's all right. And then he walks upstairs and he gives the bellboy some big ass tip because he's like, oh, anybody give you $100 tip before? And he's like, yeah. He's like, you did. And he's like, damn right. And we can see this coming a mile away. The theme is played on this slow piano. You can just tell it's coming. He goes to the bathroom, and then we see him with a gun, and we just hear a loud bang, and blood squirts onto the wall.
Yeah, it's predictable, but it's still
emotional.
Yeah,
it's still
for
sad.
sure.
And this was based on a lot of true stuff. Like Chazelle was saying, when sound film came in, a lot of the silent film actors who couldn't translate to sound, couldn't do anything. So a lot of them just committed suicide because they're like, what am I going to do? My career is over.
Yeah.
So this is based on reality. Take that, Paul Schrader. So we cut back to Manny. Manny gets home and he wakes up Nellie. He's like, oh, we have to go. Wake up, we have to go. We're going to Mexico. And she tells him she needs another hit. And he's like, no. And she asks the guy if he has coke. And he's like, no, don't do that. And they drive. They leave the house and they park in that lot in downtown LA that kind of has a lot of old-timey cars and stuff there. That wall that looks really old school there in downtown, kind of by Skid Row. And she's strung out and she's just like, oh, let's go dancing or whatever. He's like, oh, no time for dancing. Gotta go to Mexico. And so he goes to put gas, but then she runs out of the car and finds a bar where people are dancing. And he's like, hi, Nelly. And he goes over there and he tells her, oh, we need to go, And he's improvising a lot of Spanish in this part too.
For sure.
And she tells him it's the end of the road for her. Like, she just feels like, she's at peace with this. Like, she's like, this is it for me. And then he tells her, te amo. And then she just starts crying. I almost feel like she didn't understand that, like, as the actress, and the character, she didn't really understand what he was trying to say, but so she just kind of started crying.
Yeah, but I think she could kind of tell what he was saying just by seeing his emotions.
Right, yeah. So she starts crying, and then he tells her he wants to marry her, but they have to leave now. They have to go to Mexico now, and she says okay, and she goes along with it. But it's like she doesn't really believe it in a way, It's like she tells him that, but it's like her heart isn't really in it, But they dance together, and she tells some guys standing around with the camera, she's like, oh, like, I'm Nellie Leroy, bitches, or whatever, like she tells them to record him and her, and she's like, yeah, I'm Nellie Leroy, bitches, and she says that this is her husband-to-be, Manny Torres, and they're like, oh, okay, cool, and so they record them, and we see them kiss in the black and white film that they're recording. It's a nice little moment. And so they go back to the house to pick up that drug dealer dude. Well, they go to his house, I guess, and
well, yeah, they do. You don't guess, they do.
Yeah, so they go to his house, and Manny gets down but leaves Nellie in the car. He tells her, "Oh, just wait here, or whatever," and he goes in. But then Nellie just walks out. What? Nellie just walks out, dancing into the darkness, and she walks down the street, and the music is playing.
But it's the slower version.
Yeah, the slow, sad version. And she just kind of fades away in the darkness, and we don't see her again. Or do we?
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So, Manny knocks on the door, and the Count opens up, And the guy's like, "Oh, this is my roommate Kyle," and it's just this fat guy eating cereal. And it's like, I like his reaction. He's just like, he doesn't even have much emotion. And right when he gets there, some guy breaks down the door and shoots the drug dealer guy and the roommate dead. He just goes, "Pow, pow," shoots them both. And man, he's like, "Oh my god!" He's like,
Yeah, he's really scared by this.
Yeah, he's begging for his life. He's like, "I'm nobody. I'm Mexican."
Well, he does start pointing the gun at him.
Yeah, he's about to shoot him, but he's like really pleading, and he pisses his pants. We could see the pee coming out, and it was kind of sad when I saw this in the theater.
Yeah, no, well.
Yeah, it was sad. Like, I think people in the crowd were like, "Wow, like we didn't think they would show him looking this pathetic." You know what I'm saying? But
well, this probably shows him as his most vulnerable.
Yeah, I agree. So, it was a really intense moment. But we see the guy who comes to kill him, he kind of like hears him out. Surprisingly, he doesn't just blow his face off. He's like, he kind of hears him out and he just tells him, "Get the fuck out of LA. Disappear." And, I'm surprised he showed him some mercy, this guy. The guy, he almost looks like some Dodgers reliever. He has this cheesy mustache that reminds me of one of the Dodgers pitchers. And so Manny...
well, I guess he could press for one.
Yeah. So Manny...
I did not think about it that way, but now that you're mentioning it, yeah, I can see.
Yeah, Manny... So he runs out and goes back to the car, and Nellie is gone. And he's screaming her name into the darkness, but...
Yeah, she's nowhere to be found.
Yeah. And he's like, "Nellie! Nellie!" And just nothing. So he just drives off. And we see Sydney, the jazz player, and he's kind of starts back at zero. He's just playing at, all black jazz clubs, and they embrace him with open arms. It's like, oh, like, he's a musician, and that's just what they do, and saying when the fame comes and goes, but at the end of the day, if you're really about the music, then you'll play wherever. You know what I mean? So we see him playing, and then we see a montage of like how Hollywood starts changing over the next couple of decades. We start seeing studios get sold, and some studios crumble, and you can see them like crumbling. A lot of the architecture, a lot of sets that were built in LA were destroyed and stuff like that. And you just see it, how it changes in this montage. And then we dissolve, and it's 1952, and we see an older Manny there standing with his wife and daughter, and he's back in LA. I wasn't expecting to see him back in LA. Yeah, he's older. He has receding hair. He has a belly, he doesn't look that much older, but, he is supposed to be older.
Well, there's only so much age progression that they can do when they only take maybe like a couple months of shooting.
Right.
There's not much.
Yeah, but a lot of times they try to make him look like over-exaggeratedly old. But I like that it was more subtle here. Mm-hmm. And it was like kind of more in his performance, like the way he stood, the way he walked, it gave him like this old vibe,
Yeah.
So he visits the Kinoscope studio where he used to work with his wife and daughter, and he talks to the security guard.
Well, he didn't used to work there with his wife and daughter.
No, he goes there with his wife and daughter.
Oh. Well, the way you worded it sounds like he used to work there with them. No, he takes them there to visit. And
he starts talking to the security guard, who's this Mexican guy, and he starts talking to him in Spanish, and he tells the guy that he hasn't seen a movie in years, and, they just kind of small talk there. But then his wife and daughter leave him to go on an excursion around town, I guess, And that would be kind of scary when you think about it. Like, to think back to a time where there was no cell phones and stuff. It's like, how did you communicate? You know what I'm saying? Like, what if...
It was just much more difficult, really, and sometimes they just had to see if they could borrow another phone from somebody else.
Right.
Even for people who didn't have that kind of access, even not too long ago, they had to rely on a neighbor. They had to rely on someone who had a small business. So you just have to think about those things. But yeah, when you think about it, you just don't know what might happen next.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine a time like that, even though we lived through that time period, but like before people had cell phones and stuff, it's really hard to think back because people could just disappear and you wouldn't know. So he walks around town and he decides to go to a movie theater and see whatever's playing. He pays 50 cents for the movie and he walks in and takes his seat, but he's like falling asleep during the movie. He doesn't really care, but even though it's like a packed house, there to see it. So he's watching Singing in the Rain, the movie. So he didn't know what it was about. He just decided to go in and watch a movie just to kind of kill time. But some of the lines in the movie kind of start to wake him up, and they sound like eerily familiar to him. He's like, oh wow, like these lines sound familiar to me, like I've heard them before. And so in the movie, they're talking about the jazz singer, like when that came out, and how sound movies will change the game. And Manny's weirded out by what he sees and hears there. These conversations are similar to ones he had back in the day on the set. And it just takes him back to that time. He just has a flashback in his head thinking about that. And then the theme of him and Nelly musically pops in his head. And it's like he just starts to cry. We hear that ghostly version of the theme, and he puts his head in his hands and starts to cry, I guess, just from thinking all about that time period. And even though he's really sad, the crowd doesn't realize that they're just into the movie.
Well, they're not focusing on him. They're just focused on the screen.
Yeah, and it's a nice drone shot, or like a crane shot there that pans away from him, and we see overhead all these people in the crowd, and they're all just looking up at the movie, and it kind of goes into a circle, and it goes back to Manny, and the song "Singing in the Rain" kicks in in the movie, and he remembers hearing it back in the day. He remembers being on the set when Jack and his ex-wife were there singing in the purple raincoat, in the pink raincoats that they had.
Which ex-wife?
Yeah. Which one?
Yes.
The Hungarian one.
Yes, I figured it was her.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we remember that he did go through quite a few women.
Yeah, he did. We see footage of him, of Manny, of Nelly, of Jack, of Faye, of Sydney on black and white film, and then him kissing Nelly. And then we see that iconic shot of Nelly running out of the door of the party in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And you hear the more upbeat jazz version as she's running out, and that shot of her, and we hear her say, "Why?" And it's him. I just want to be part of something bigger. It flashes back to that scene when they're talking about, like, where would you want to go? And then we proceed to see this montage that encapsulates the history of film. And it goes really well with the music. You see everything like in chronological order, from the silent era up to Avatar to Terminator 2. You see all this stuff, the whole history of film right there in this montage. And it goes really well with the music, and it kind of crescendos. You see, Tron, Jurassic Park, like all these important films from different perspectives. You see Persona, speaking of Ingmar Bergman, you see that in the montage. And it's a really cool ending, very Christopher Nolan-ish. And I guess Nolan is a fan of Damian Chazelle. He really likes it. He mentioned that he really likes his film. So,
and that comes from someone who's known to be a very good filmmaker.
Yeah, exactly. That's high praise from Nolan himself. And then we see this film developing process and the colors getting thrown in and the music kind of crescendos, and we see Jack in this blue filter, like when he was on set in the beginning, when he was doing that period piece. Mm-hmm. And then we see Nellie in red when she's like dancing on the bar, and we see Sydney in purple. We see all these images, and then it goes quiet, and we see Manny back in the theater crying. And then as he's looking at the screen, his crying turns into a subtle smile. And he's smiling, and then the film ends, and we hear this loud Chinese gong sound that kind of ends the movie. And it's just like, and that's the end of the film. And then drums kick in on the soundtrack. And then we see the credits come up. Mm-hmm. And that's it for Babylon.
Yes.
Yeah, we finished it. Finally.
Yeah, well, it is a pretty long movie, and we did have to go through a lot of details.
Right. Anything you wanted to say about it that we didn't get to?
Well, I probably already did mention it, especially on the first part, that I do have to give credit to Damian Chazelle for casting Diego Calva, for casting a Latino actor, Mexican nonetheless, and especially one that wasn't even that big, even in Mexico. Like, as we mentioned, honestly, I do have to respect them for that. Although, unfortunately, I don't think Diego Calva has still really been getting that big of roles, even after starring in Babylon. And which is very disappointing, and you can see that he really did seem to go over a lot of people's heads, because everyone sees the main cast as Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, because obviously those names are very well known already. And to me, they're not even the ones that stood out that much for me. Like I mentioned before, when Diego Calva portrayed Joshua in Desenfrenada, I really bought it. I really thought, this guy is ghetto. This guy he really plays a good asshole. And now that I can see what he's like as an actor, and how he also portrays himself in real life, I see it. He has talent.
Mm-hmm.
At least to me, he has talent.
Yeah, no, I think he's really talented. And if you see, he did one of these GQ, like 10 things I can't live without, or whatever.
Yeah, like 10 things I must have in my bag.
Yeah. And,
is that what they call it?
Yeah. So yeah. And there's a thing where he likes to draw, so he always has like a sketchbook on him. And we see him doing these like images, and they're pretty cool, actually. I'm like, dude, this guy's pretty talented. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he could probably do multiple arts if he wanted to. But I think he'll get bigger. I know he's gonna be in this movie with like Jacob Elordi. The guy, I guess he's on Euphoria or whatever.
Yeah, he's on Euphoria, and he's the guy who played Elvis Presley and Sofia Coppola's
Priscilla.
Oh, Priscilla. Yeah. Well,
not the Elvis Baz Luhrmann film, but yeah, the Priscilla one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe in Diego. I think he'll keep getting bigger. I mean, if I ever do a film, I'd love to work with him. And he also did, what was it called? The River? Secret of the River?
Yeah, it's called Secret of the River. It's on Netflix. It's a series about two boys. And one of them finds that he's not cisgender. There's way more to the story, which I really don't want to spoil it, and I also don't want it to take up too much time. So just look up The Secret of the River. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting watch. So yeah.
Yeah, and he's going back to his roots. It's a Mexican series. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Babylon. I think it's a great film. I think it'll just get bigger with time. I mentioned in the first part that I saw that it reached 1 million watches on Letterboxd a couple months ago, and I think that'll keep growing. I think people who end up watching it will be like, "Damn, this movie's pretty good." Like, like the way The Thing bombed and Blade Runner bombed, and got bad reviews when those first came out. Now those are considered masterpieces.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would hope so. And I actually hope that it surpasses La La Land. Because, honestly, I think this is even more heartfelt. Because I felt, not that I felt, I still feel that La La Land only covered one side of what it could have really covered. It could have shown a more vast side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I feel that Babylon did a better job.
Great.
Yeah.
Any other words on Babylon before we wrap up?
No, other than more people should really give it a chance.
Yeah, check out Babylon if you haven't yet. I know it's on Paramount right now, Paramount Plus. It might be on other things. Well, maybe on Netflix, depending on what country you're in. But yeah, check it out and keep listening to Briterion Bollection. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
All right, see ya.
Peace.
Bye.